And we're live back here on the 8th edition of the LA Shoulder Podcast, where we sit shoulder to shoulder with the experts. I'm about to get that right one day. I'm a shoulder expert, but I'm learning a lot more from experts these days. So on this one, I have a very special friend who's a specialist. His name's Alonzo. I have him in my phone as Jiu Jitsu Alonzo. What's your last name, Alonzo?
Campos.
Yeah. And he's a specialist at therapy. So basically he does training. He's a personal trainer. He works at ZZOFIT, which is his own company, right?
Right.
That's your company.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing personal training?
28 years now.
28 years.
If you count, all of the athletics that I did. We worked with teams at first, right? And that evolves into working with the public eventually. And,
How did you get into training? Like when did your fitness journey begin?
Officially, I would say, like saying like, okay, this is what I want to do, or as I always found it, because I always found it interesting, right? And when I graduated high school and going to college, my younger brother was still wrestling, so I went back to help him get to state and do well in state. But in doing so, made camaraderie and friendships with the kids behind him, and came back the following year and the year after that and the year after that and the year after that, and I really never left. Mm-hmm. And so even though I went through college and I went to film school and got a film degree and eventually worked in that industry, I always was coaching on the side.
In so the film industry?
Yeah, I was a camera operator for 12 years. Yeah. Worked on different TV shows and obviously as many gigs as you can get here and there. But 2007 hits, recession hits. It's tough to find gigs. There's a saturation of the prosumer camera becomes economical. So all of a sudden everybody's got a camera and everybody's is out there doing work.
It changed the landscape.
It changed the game. And at that point, I was still doing the high school stuff. But a buddy of mine says, "Hey, we're looking for a trainer over here at the gym that I'm at. Would you mind coming in a couple of days a week and doing some training?" And that's kind of where it starts. I go there and end up. I felt like that was kind of fate at that point, and it was interesting. That week, I had really been contemplating going to the mall and just filling out applications because work was scarce. And that morning I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to the mall. I'm going to do this application thing. And as I'm getting ready to leave the house, the phone rings and it's my buddy asking me this question, if I'm, would like to come train people at this gym. And I jumped at the opportunity. I even left all the stuff that I was doing and got in the car and went straight over there and got picked up for 2 days a week. But quickly, by the end of that summer, I was busy. And
what kind of skills did you have to offer at that time that you felt like comfortable did you think that you had something to offer people, or
Absolutely.
Was it
Absolutely.
So what kind of things at the time did you know about fitness that you thought would?
Well, by this point I've been working with the high school teams, the collegiate and obviously the A team, essentially the varsity team, and getting them stronger, getting these kids ready for state. So we had been working already extensively with strength and conditioning, right?
I see.
By this point, I had already had a few years of strength and conditioning with real athletes trying to get to real competitions. So when I go work
which sport?
Wrestling.
So it was wrestling, and that was through your brother.
Yeah. Well, we were both on the wrestling team.
And you were on the team too.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I
did pretty well.
Did you? How far did you go with wrestling?
I made it to state. At the States.
Was that California or
California State? Yeah.
Where did you grow up? What area?
I went to Glendale High School and played water polo and swam for that high school. My folks divorced in the middle of that situation. And, before that, and then by the middle of that situation, my mom remarries and we moved to Chatsworth. And the Chatsworth
just
High
north
School,
of the valley.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Chatsworth High School has no swimming pool, so no more swim team. And as a junior, I try out wrestling.
Oh, because they didn't have a pool?
Because they didn't have a pool.
You could swim in.
And I didn't want to play football. I was too small at the time. Yeah, you look fast, but guys hit big.
Sure.
Guys are big.
Football's
I'm
really
worried about
tough.
the guy I can't
football.
see coming from the left,
Yeah.
So
I met a pretty decent sized guy. I went against giant guys.
Right? Can you imagine? Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I'm a small person. Wrestling was a way better fit, which actually was the best thing I ever did.
You size up against an opponent your same weight. So you guys are better matched up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I had all the attributes from swimming and the athleticism. And, I really didn't know much about wrestling, but I did one league that year, placed in city. I actually not placed. I was in the finals. Well, I guess so. I placed second in the finals at the city tournament, losing to the returning city champion. My first year.
For Glendale?
My very first. No, this is for Chatsworth.
Oh, Chatsworth. I see.
Yeah. Kid from Bell High School was returning city champion. Mm-hmm. Ended up in the finals with him. But that was my first year out. El Camino at the time doesn't believe that I'm a new wrestler. They investigate to see if I'm a ringer.
You're doing so well.
They thought that I was a ringer that they brought me from high school.
Investigate.
But of course, it was all up and up. I was just kind of gifted to it. And then the next year, I win city. I win league. I win city. I go to state, and I do well for a first time. Actually 2-year wrestler. First time at state. Mm-hmm. But at that time, my ride's over. Not time for me to go to college. Mm-hmm. And I go back and I help my brother. So I was at the JC at Moore Park College with Coach Keever, and then eventually Keesaw, and just trickling all that information, all that technique down to my brother and my teammates, trying to help them, excel.
So you were a wrestling coach for a while?
For a while.
How many years?
I mean, I literally went back the year after I graduated and never left.
Do you still coach wrestling?
No. I bounced around a few high schools. I was at Chatsworth, actually, obviously, for a while. And then in the summer, I kind of jumped around between like Reseda. I helped out Birmingham. Eventually settled at Harbor Westlake. Was my first like real paid coaching gig.
How competitive is that program for wrestling?
They're a tough school.
Yeah, tough school.
They're a tough school. Mm-hmm. But the interest in the sport, it was just like the year I get hired, I think the head coach was also coaching softball. And he literally said to me, I enjoy softball so much more, so good luck. And pretty much
he left you alone.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he would come in, but very rarely, and it was really what we were doing in the room. So we didn't have much support there, and even then, I think it was really tough. The sport wasn't like one of these sports that brings in a lot of fans and a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So
it's for the kids who train and who are dedicated to wrestling.
Right. The cool thing about the wrestling situation is that it allows anyone to come in. Like, it doesn't really matter like how athletic you are, how buff or not, or thin or small. I mean, there's moves for every body type, and as long as you're willing to endure and stay in it, you can find a style that fits your body type and your body shape and your strength and so forth.
It makes you tough too.
It makes you real tough. I mean, those practices, I'll tell you this much, we would have half the football team try out, and it'd be lucky if one of them stayed.
A lot of those guys, there was like maybe one or two guys who played football and wrestled, but most people couldn't do both.
The kids that came in, they would puke after the first day. They would be out there puking, couldn't hang, and we're wrestling match after match after match after match. And these kids, they're great for the first one, second one maybe, but after that is like tough.
And when did you stop wrestling as a coach? Like, when did you stop?
My last year coaching, I finished at Granada Hills High School. I was a head coach for 3 years over there at Granada. I was an assistant for 1, and did awesome. I had my best wrestler place in second in state for Granada. Mm-hmm. So, one of the best placers for the city section at the time. Ends up taking second in nationals. Ends up wrestling for Cal Poly. So he did really well. He did really well. We did really well. It was a great little venture. That was the year I finished 2014. Mm-hmm. And then I started ZZOFIT, like the location. Like, the business was already going. I had already clients. I was working at a gym. But this is when I start to think about opening ZZOFIT itself.
So what was that transition like? So you were still coaching wrestling. It sounds like that you're pretty dedicated with that. And then were you training any wrestling during that time, or just coaching?
I was mostly coaching. I did right in the middle of that, somewhere I was like 32, I think, at the time. I try out for the Mexican Olympic team. First time they're letting Latin Mexican Americans, and you had to be first or second generation Mexican American, try out. So they took a handful of us from LA, well, from different parts of the United States.
It was open tryouts.
A few of us.
A few
of us. The tryouts.
So you had to meet certain parameters.
Correct. Right. They had us go and wrestle at this practice, and
I see. For wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
And then they picked us. We got to be our coach at the time for the event was Mark Schultz. So I don't know if you know the Schultz brothers.
I've heard of them.
Dave is the one that ends up getting murdered. They're both Olympic gold medalists.
Was it that the Fox?
The Foxcatcher movie?
Yeah,
that's the story about their life. So the one that survives, obviously, that was our coach for the trials. Henry Cejudo was on the camp, so that was kind of cool. So yeah, it was a really great experience. And that was like after I had finished wrestling. I was now at this point coaching, but the opportunity showed up and I jumped on it and I got to the finals. So I lose in the finals against a very talented, young, like 20-year-old firecracker. It was just,
so you really went through competition with wrestling.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, that's if you went through that. You didn't get into jiu-jitsu till later in your life?
2000, I meet Romulo at the first.
When he was in Tarzana?
This is Northridge, his first school.
Right.
I meet him at the place that I'm working at, training people. He's actually training with my boss at the time. And, just started a conversation about, the need to wanting to be on the mat. And he was always like, come in, you should come in. I also tried MMA. So by this point, I had already dabbled in jiu-jitsu. The very first MMA match that I have, I lose to a triangle choke after I feel really getting the better of the person. And then they throw up this triangle, and that was that. And I was like, what was that?
You were using your wrestling and kickboxing?
Yeah, I mean, once I got him to the floor, then it was just kind of ground and pound, Tito Ortiz style.
Right.
And
effective.
Effective.
As long as you don't get triangled.
Until those legs just flew up and he got me. And so after that, I was like, what is this? And then I really started to learn. And then shortly after, meet Romulo and start going there. Love the competition in his room. He had such tough guys.
Yeah, he runs Northridge with a lot of intensity. I trained there. It's a good place, I mean, especially for competition.
Those years, man, where Edwin and Gabriel and even Felipe is coming from Brazil, they're all coming there to train. The room was for real.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's still really for
a lot
real,
of talent
right?
coming
But
through.
at that, it was like all these guys were competing, right? That's the other thing is they were all high level and they were all getting after it. They were all competing. So the room was just woof. So I was lucky. I fell in the right spot, the right time, was around the right people.
You're at the right place. I mean, the Gracies were Southern California for sure. They were here with, and I know Redondo Horian was down, and they and I know Homolo was really. He's been in the South Bay for a long time as well, teaching jiu-jitsu. And where we train with Edwin, I've been training there for, I think, 2 years now. How long have you been training with Edwin at that?
I mean, I met Edwin when he was a blue belt.
Yeah, you've known him for a long time.
And I met him with Romo.
In Northridge.
Northridge. Yeah,
and so you came over to Tarzana to train there once Edwin started
because I was at the time now I was living in Studio City.
Yeah.
So the drive, like to try to make it to Northridge, it was so difficult.
Oh, it's difficult to get through the valley.
And so when he opened in Tarzana, I was like, oh, that saves me so much time. That
makes sense, yeah.
So I started going there more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just because it was closer, but I was still making Sundays at Romulo's and trying to get at least one day
as much as you can, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's always
it's
tough. Great learning.
I mean, I love going over there, but I gotta schedule it. I gotta plan it.
Right.
It's I gotta take time off the day. It's
well, there's a lot more jiu-jitsu popping up, especially around in the valley. I know Fabio's place in Studio City. So that was awesome that popped up. That's blocks away from me. Yeah.
So that was awesome.
Fabio's great.
Fabio's amazing.
For a long time.
I mean, I can't wait to see what he does at the school.
He gave me my purple belt.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. Man. He's
and Edwin, of course.
He's a great teacher. I love the way his breakdowns are. His breakdowns are great.
It was when I was rolling with Johnny. It was like, all right, he's ready. He must get the purple belt tonight.
No, I mean, you've always been tough, man. You're a tough guy.
You've taught me a lot too, and that's what I thought was so impressive. Was I met you on the mats, and I met you because I think you've been a brown belt as long as I've known you.
No, I met you as a purple.
Really?
Yeah, I met you as purple.
So then you had just gotten your brown belt then, not much later after I met you, because you've been a brown belt for a while now, and you've just been just dominating from the ground and from the top and just using your strength that's just, it doesn't seem real, like how strong you are. So what I noticed was like, you're not the biggest guy, but like you're pretty fit. You know how your body works really well. And I noticed that on the mat just by rolling with you from the start. And so, and then I knew you had the attitude that you weren't going to mess around. I mean, you and I had good matches together. Yeah. We were, you know, like neither one of us wanted to give anything. Right. So it's like, if you sweat me, you're just like, oh, you know, I was kind of tilting off and I'm not going to let you do that again. Right. You know, so like you have some of those matches with some people. Right. So I knew you had that like competitiveness to you, you know, and I, you know, with the wrestling, with your background with that, just kind of how like your body worked, I can always kind of feel how wrestlers are pretty like in tune with that, or, you know, you just have like a different way that you engage with people. And I think people that have a wrestling background that now do jujitsu, you get really dangerous because like, you know, like really how your body works, but now you're learning jujitsu, which is really effective. Did you kind of cross over? Did you cross over pretty much after wrestling? So you just always trained wrestling, and then you did MMA, and or did you ever have time off before you got into that stuff? Because I never did this stuff.
I've had pockets.
I started 5 years ago.
I've had pockets of moments where I go and I, you know, obviously like COVID is a good example right now. That was a different, you know, that wasn't self-induced, but I wasn't going on the mats. You know, at the time I was still working with my clients. And so my clients were concerned about me being in rooms wrestling with people, right? In the beginning of COVID, nobody really knows much. And they're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to train with you if you're, you know, going to be going over there. And so I had to adjust.
People were territorial?
No. My clients were more like, I'm concerned that you'll catch COVID.
Oh, they were concerned about COVID.
Yeah, because I'm going to roll with guys, right?
People that were rolling were kind of like, we gave it a few weeks and we're like, guys, if we're going to keep rolling, you got to just be okay with this. You know, like, it's kind of like family stuff. Like family is like, if you're sick, your family's at home, you're like, yeah, you should stay in your room, but kind of like everybody might get sick.
Right.
So it's just kind of, it was like how you're going to deal with these things. Some people took a long time off from training because of how they felt about COVID.
Well, dude, I'm telling you, I took a 2-year hiatus. And now again, this was more.
So you did?
I did, because my clients were like, I'm not going to train with you.
I see. That makes sense. So you really had to take time off.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I was going to lose business. So it was a business
I'm a doctor.
decision. So
I had to wear a mask the whole time.
Right.
But they're like, well, my
because
shoulder needs to be
they're in
fixed,
pain,
so.
right? They're in pain. They have no choice, right?
Exactly.
With me, I'm more like a luxury in that sense. And they were like, well, if you're going to still train, I don't know if I want to train.
Interesting.
And so I had to make a decision. So anyway, that's when I switched to cycling, right? And at this point, I'm already kind of, you know, I've already bought the bike. I'm already going on rides. I got a couple buddies that do it.
Had you started your business before COVID?
Yeah.
So
2018, I opened the doors. Yeah.
So now, tell me what that was like when you started your business. I think we were just getting into that. I wanted to hear kind of how that formed, because you said you were interested in working out and you had some ideas that you could offer and that you could train your clients really well. Yeah. And then we kind of got down the wrestling path, which I think most of the time you've been wrestling, kind of training and doing that stuff. COVID make you take some time off from MMA, but otherwise you've been working out, you've been running your gym. So what was that like when you started the gym?
Well, 2017, I'm having trouble at the place that I'm at. It had gotten bought by a new ownership. And they were really, they created their own training staff. We were a bunch of independents in there as well. And they had their own staff, and the independents just had a pretty good hold on the client base there. And so they did not like that. So they started to really manipulate situation for us to not be there anymore. And so by the time I realized what's happening,
the trainers,
the owners,
but they were pushing the trainers.
They were pushing the trainers out, because obviously if you have all the clients, and I want some of those clients, if you would go away, all of a sudden I have access to those clients. But lo and behold, I mean, I found a spot about a mile from that place. So all my clients came with me, and I encouraged them to keep their gym membership because I wanted them to keep working out.
You need access to a gym to work out regularly.
Correct. That's the thing. I think that's another thing that society really doesn't look at in the correct perspective, and that is, you need to utilize a trainer like you would a business coach, right? Like, you don't spend all day with your business coach. You call him crazy. You call him a couple times a month.
Stop correcting me every second, okay? Like, let me try it for a little while, and then I'll come back and check me out.
And so if people took that attitude,
that's
right? And I would think that that's kind of how you use it, supplementally to what you're already doing, to improve what you're doing on your own, right? To learn more. I mean, if we can understand that to be the case for anything that you want to improve. You're going to go get a mentor or a coach. Why I mean, people will pay lots of money for someone to fix a drywall hole that you can learn on YouTube, but we'll go to the gym where it's super complex and you're dealing with so many systems in the body, right? Oh, but they got that. And you're just like, wait.
And it's not just movement, it's assessment of that movement. You know, it's like, I can feel like, hey, I can do it. You know, I can do it. And then you're like, it's kind of like not right. I can still do it. And you're like, oh, it's too heavy now. I'm lifting too much weight. I can't do it. But then you can say like, oh, I can do it. And over time, you're like doing it wrong potentially. And then you're lifting weights. You have these little issues.
And that's the part
because you're not assessing these things. And now you start going off of these, you know, you're like, I feel good. I'm working out. And that's fine. But then people don't know how to maintain, how much is okay, how much is too much. So like what kind of fitness plans like would you recommend that people do if they wanted to start getting into just training?
Before I even go into plans, I think you need to regress and look at it as what we're talking about here is a multitude of systems that are working together, right? Because if you go into the gym, most people go into the gym looking to gain strength or lose weight.
Exactly.
That's it.
It's like, I want to get a gym membership. Let's pump some iron.
They're really not
Let's get some
thinking
results.
about, you know, increasing their mobility, if they're stiff, if they're hypermobile, right? A lot of people are hypermobile. Right. And don't
you
really,
hypermobile
and don't really understand how that can be an issue, especially if you're going into heavy lifting, right? You need stability. And if you're got too much instability in the joint, you're already asking, you're as we were talking about the predisposition, right? You have a situation where we were talking about earlier about people that come from situations that are predisposed to these types of things. And I mean, I think that could be discussed either direction, whether that is feasible or not. But let's say that there is a level of predisposition to things. And again, I would treat it no different than if you came from a family of heart attacks. And I would say, okay, well, let's look at this. Like, what can you not do? What can you not get away with? What can you get away with a little bit? And make a plan based on those parameters, right? But if you don't know...
If somebody has heart attacks, don't eat McDonald's every day.
Absolutely.
You know you have risk factors.
So if you have instability in your shoulder and you want to go shoulder press, you should really first deal with the instability aspect and understand why that is. So before you go into the routines, you got to know what you're working with.
But how do you know? How do you know? Does everybody have a problem, or do only some people have problems? What do you think?
I think
let's just take the shoulder, for example. This is the LA Shoulder Podcast.
Okay.
We'll start with the shoulder.
I think everybody will have problems because their objective is to get stronger and lift heavier, right? So if that is your objective, you're just going to keep loading the shoulder more and more, and it'll start. At first, you won't even if there is a dysfunction in the shoulder, you're going to get stronger. You're going to get stronger with the dysfunction, right? And eventually, that's going to get loud enough, and the weight's going to get heavy enough to make it a real problem, and now you need surgery, right? But you will discover those things. Like, I often have had clients be like, oh yeah, I've always stretched better on this side, or I always feel a little tighter on that side, right? Those things is your body telling you things. Like, don't ignore it. Like, that is the information. Like, if you're looking to understand it, those are the little pieces of information that your body is telling you.
Listen to your body.
Listen to your body. I mean, how often have I heard that's...
But it hurts all the time.
Yeah.
It's always telling me, oh, pain here, pain there. So it's just telling me it's pain all the time. Is that okay?
No, that's not okay. Like,
well, then what should I do about it?
You should start investigating. It's a puzzle.
Each one, right?
It's a puzzle.
Yeah,
man.
you got to think about each one.
Yeah.
What is the reason for the pain?
What is you can go and...
It may be a lot to do, but
because you can address it. You can address a shoulder problem per se by creating more strength and stability in the shoulder, and that will help the shoulder. But if you don't deal with what made the shoulder go wrong, then you're just making it stronger, not fixing the problem.
You told me that I had poor thoracic mobility, and I thought that was really interesting because it wasn't something I had ever thought about before, even like on myself or as a shoulder specialist. Like it was something that I think opened my eyes to how just the movement of the thoracic spine can affect how the shoulder blades are oriented and then how they're functioning.
Absolutely.
And those muscles are functioning.
We're talking angles here, right?
So tell me what you meant by, like, what did you see in me? Because I want to look at the video. We can watch that. But like, what did you kind of see in my shoulder, like with your assessment? Or what do you normally do when you do an assessment for somebody that comes in?
So
and then
for you,
how do you kind of make some changes? Yeah, sure.
When I saw you raise your arms over your like a overhead press, right? When I watched you do that, I could see the overactivation in the upper trap. Right. Which means
this part.
Yeah. Which means the shoulder is looking for support and stability out of the upper trap.
Right.
Right. And in all actuality, that support needs to come from the lower thirds of the trap, the bottom part of the trap.
Yeah.
Right. And the lat.
Right.
As it pulls the shoulder, as your arm raises, your shoulder should go down rather than up. Right. And so if it's going up, that is going to be most likely guided by the position of the spine. Right? If the person can't extend through their thoracic spine, they can't find their lats. Therefore, they're going to need to go into the neck.
And you kept telling me to get it externally rotated.
Right. So as your arms kept going up, you were rotating internally.
I was cheating by going in.
Yeah, you were rolling your arms.
So that's because my neck is like too tight, like up here.
Right.
And then I'm like I'm right here. Right. And so you're trying to get my chest opened up.
Correct.
Would you say get my shoulders back or not really?
Well, I would say,
some people say that.
Keep rolling out, right? Because if you rotate the arm externally, you're going to
naturally
open.
Okay,
right?
so out.
Right,
but not like extended on my back either.
No,
like,
well, that's the other part, right?
That's why I was like, okay, so now we're talking about other things.
So
we're trying to talk about my shoulder.
But that's the problem, man, because everybody looks at these problems as areas of issue. It is in conjunction to the rest of the mechanics.
I think the shoulder is a giant part of your body.
Right. So if the thoracic is dictating different patterns of your shoulder, then you're using different muscles. And yeah, you can get your arm over your head, but it isn't efficiently doing it.
It's struggling.
And
then that's what people come into me and they'll say they have trouble over time. And I call it fatigue, because they're like working those muscles, those even sometimes accessory breathing muscles, you were saying like those can get fatigued because they're not designed. They're not there or equipped, I should say. Sometimes they can be a certain purpose, but generally the bigger muscles are supposed to do the heavier lifting.
Right.
The smaller muscles do fine movements and they do stabilization.
Correct.
They shouldn't be doing heavy loads. They get damaged that way.
If you look at the posture of most people today with their shoulders forward, like if you were just to do it right now and round your shoulders and put your hand on the table here and act like you're moving a mouse with your hand, right? You're gonna notice that most people that are rounded forward working on a computer, you're gonna notice that most of that movement's coming from your upper trap.
It's like here.
It's coming from
I'll
your
go
trap.
like that.
Whereas if you were sitting correctly and more properly, you're gonna see how it's kind of come from other muscles of the shoulder. It's gonna be more like the delt. It's gonna be a couple of other things. The posterior, the rotator cuff is going to be a little more involved, right? Whereas if you're this slouchy position, you're relying on a muscle that is supposed to be used for power as an intricate mover. And now, you're moving the mouse, but you're moving it with a muscle that is not supposed to do that job. What's the problem with that? Even though it's a stronger muscle, should be able to handle that. Overuse. So we start overusing it, and now we rely on it for everything, all of the intricate stuff and the power stuff. And you go to the gym, you go to lift something heavy after being on the computer for a couple of hours that morning, and now you have a pickle, right? Now you have a situation where you've built on that tension in the trap, and then you
don't have time to deal with it. Right, I'm working. I don't have my Theragun or whatever equipment. I don't have my massage therapist.
Right,
so now you just got to work, and then by the end of the day, now it's been building and getting worse. And now you're just like, I just need to get to bed. I don't have time to deal with it.
Right, which is why I think that it's important for people
yelling at each other the whole night
to look at.
I won't go to sleep.
To look at the things that they can squeeze in. Right, like how
if you are a person, got to get bigger, so let me just hit the weights.
Right. Well, I mean, you'll prioritize that, right? But if let's digress here, and you're a person that just is like a software engineer, and you're having shoulder problems, well, it would be to your best interest to take breaks during your long hours of sitting to do a small shoulder stretch on the wall. That takes you literally 30 seconds.
Like a wall stretch?
Yeah, something like a wall stretch, or like the ones I showed you with the roller, right? If you just, instead of a smoke break, people used to take smoke breaks, right? Take a little healthy break, right? Undo this crappy posture that you're sitting in. Understand that, sitting is the new smoking. And it's causing a lot of problems. So
totally,
if you know this, again, we go back to this knowledge of things that are happening, predispositions, or things that I may be building on myself. I've had conversations with clients where they go, well, are you telling me not to work? Are you telling me I have to change the console? I worked with a very famous, and we're not going to name her, sound engineer for movies. Oscar nominated woman.
You can say her.
And we were talking about the console that she uses to mix.
Yeah.
And she's a small person like me. And as she described the console main button was, in my opinion, a little far out of her reach. And I was like, is that the position you work in? And she's like, yeah, this is how the machine is. And I said, yeah, that's not helping you, man. That's actually missing your situation.
You're watching her do it. You're watching the damage happen in real time.
And I would mention to her, this is a thing that's making your issue worse. She immediately said, are you telling me I need to stop working? And we go to the fear factor, right? We go like, what are you saying? Like, this is my bread and butter. Like, what are you talking to me? So it's about taking a step back and going, okay, this is something that it isn't helping me, but I need to keep in my life, right? So what do I do? How do I treat it? How do I manage it, right? How do I balance it and still come out on top? It's not a this or that. I think it's more of an understanding of what you're doing, understanding what you're dealing with. How's your life? The demands that you have. Why is that thing in your life? Why are you doing that? Even if it is hurting you, maybe you have to. Maybe your back is hurting and you work in construction and you have to because that's what you do.
You got to show up to work,
right? You got to show up to work. Mm-hmm. So why? And that's kind of like being a coach. Kind of helped see that and forced it a little harder because here I am wrestling with young kids. Right? These kids are top shape. They're 19, 20-year-old phenoms. And in order for me to be able to wrestle well with these kids in the room, I had to keep up my own fitness. Mm-hmm. I actually, and this is a crazy thing when I tell people, it's like working out by myself, I don't enjoy much of it. I find it boring. That's just why I go to jiu-jitsu, which is why I choose mountain biking and all these sports that are a little more involved because it's just too mundane, right? Mm-hmm. But I started to see and understand that it is what keeps me able to do the other fun stuff. So it's maintenance, right? And people need to see workouts and stop calling them workouts and start calling them maintenance. Just like you would do a car.
So how long would you say, like, because we did, our session was like 45 minutes or so I worked out?
Yeah, I did about 45 minutes.
And I want to show a little clip of that. Let me just, I'll kind of play it while we talk about it, and then we can kind of, you can kind of break it down. But like, this is just kind of some of the ab things that we were doing and stuff like that. But we can do, I don't know if, I think I might have the first assessment that you did on me. Maybe it was this one.
It's on the other too.
From Alonzo kicking my ass. But that was right after we kind of got started, right at the start.
Yeah, this is at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's actually very interesting. You can go ahead and pause it there. The idea that I need these heavy weights, right? The idea that I need this massive stimulus.
Right.
And there are obviously places for that and times for that. But a good workout, I mean, you were sweating bullets.
Dude, I was sweating, which is stability.
You didn't pick up a single weight.
And the first thing you see, there you are with your just socks on. So
yeah.
You work out with your socks on.
I work out with socks on.
Yeah, in your gym, and you don't leave weights on the floor. So just and do your clients take their shoes off when they?
I ask them to take their shoes off. Sometimes people are uncomfortable.
It felt good. It felt very comfortable.
Well, once I show people how much more stability they have,
I felt more connected with my body. It didn't feel like my shoes were throwing me off.
Right.
It felt like I could just kind of get my alignment centered and focused on the ground.
Let me ask you this. If you had a glove in your hand, that was as thick as...
I wear gloves for surgery.
Okay, but let's call this glove as thick as the bottom of most people's shoes.
Okay.
What would that do to the muscles?
It'd be huge. It'd be like Mickey Mouse.
Now, what would that do to the muscles in your forearm and your bicep and even the shoulder?
It wouldn't be as efficient.
And they would like probably small forearms, small biceps, right? And the ability to sense, right, with that glove. Could you run your hand over my shoulder and tell me where my shirt ended if you weren't looking at my arm? Right, you wouldn't. You'd have a hard time telling. The ability to have that sensibility is the same as in our feet, right? So when people put shoes on, they kill all of that information that is coming from the ground.
Yeah,
all that
the connection to the ground.
When you go back to jiu-jitsu and why I feel so heavy, and even though I weigh 138 pounds and you weigh what?
I'm like 195 right now.
Almost 200 pounds.
Let's say 200.
So you're a tough guy to handle when I weigh 138 pounds.
Sure.
Right? And if I don't connect all these things together well, I'm not going to have a chance with you.
Yeah, but I mean, there's an elephant in the room. The clear difference is I'm much bigger than you. And I don't know. You can't necessarily say, I don't know if I'm much stronger than you, because like how your body works and then how you compare strength to certain movements, you might know how to like use your body to lift a very heavy weight. I don't want to overestimate what you can lift. I don't know, but I know I'm bigger than you. And like my arms are longer than you. So I'm going to have a different fight against you in jiu-jitsu. I know that at least because you size people up. You look at a big guy and you're like, he's not a small guy. He's a big guy. So I'm going to have to handle him differently.
Right.
You know, so it's just going to be a different interaction, but like you still can't underestimate people's ability to fight, obviously, like with jiu-jitsu or wrestling or their background or how strong they are, because you might be super strong, which you are.
Well, and again, I go back to that connection
and fast
that
too,
inability to connect the parts of the body,
because you get connected and then you start working.
Right.
And then
so it starts from the floor,
strength.
right? It starts from my feet. It starts from where I'm pressing on, right? And then I put my leg in such a way. I mean, I teach my clients about structural integrity. Right? Like structural integrity is important.
Do you use the concepts that you work out with when you do jiu-jitsu?
110%. Like when I'm building frames, right? And you're building frames and you're creating your little house, your little safe space, right? It's all structural integrity, right?
What do you think the best like workout that you do is that translates to jiu-jitsu?
Cross pattern.
What does that mean?
Yeah, making sure that you're doing both oppositional things with the left and right side. You know, if I'm pulling with one arm, I'm pushing with the other. If I'm, doing a lunge row, kind of like I had you doing, where you're doing a little bit of lower body, upper body, lower body's pushing, upper body's pulling. You're playing with these two back and forth dynamics of the body that are very real.
Do you try to mimic some of the workouts that you do from jiu-jitsu?
There are some exercises that
do you find that they kind of cross over?
They do. I mean, I find it interesting with all these people, especially on Instagram now that it's so popular. Training. Everybody's
got something to say. You're like, I don't know who to trust. It's like you got to have credentials for me.
Well, not only that, but you also see like the people that are like, I'm the football guy.
You got to at least look really fit.
I'm the yeah, but they're like all these specialties, right? All these sports specialty people. Yeah. And to me, athletics are athletics, right? Like if you can become strong in mechanics, now are there some specificities? Of course there are, but in general consensus, we can really look at mechanics and put them in a basketball setting, in a wrestling setting, in a football setting. They're all going to be very similar in a lot of places. So the workouts to me, intensities and all these other variables, but as far as what are like exercises that mimic the function, you're already doing, like if you're doing, for example, a plank pull through, you sit on you're on your plank and you're pulling an object or a kettlebell or a sandbag across.
You were showing me kind of the ab one where you pull the towel out from behind me.
Oh, this one, and of course the dead bug.
The dead bug one.
Dead bug.
This one I barely kind of understood from the start, like why, like how I can push this harder with my abs.
Well, and this here, okay, so why did I go here to this exercise after seeing your mechanics? I noticed that you were going really quickly into your lower lumbar for support.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's just always overactive.
You're leaning into that. Oh, like as we were talking about overhead pressing, right?
But I blame that. I attribute that to my frame. I'm just like, oh, that's my frame.
Right. But if you make a justifiable reason for that, then you could be okay with that. And to me, I go, well, okay, that may be true. How do we improve it?
Should I compensate with should I have better mechanics because of my poor, my frame that's going to mess me up? Like I feel like my frame, it puts me at risk for certain things.
Okay,
do you think that's true?
No. Well, and again, it's not necessarily just your frame, right? It could be your muscular tightness. Right? Like how much tightness, like remember the one that we were doing on the wall?
Yeah.
Right. And then we stretched a little bit and then you had a little more room. And often I tell people like you need to use stretching in a way that makes it so that you get more out of whatever else you're doing. Right. Like to stretch, I'm going to stretch my pec if I'm going to utilize my pecs a little bit, right? To get a little more mobility, a little more range of motion, especially if I'm doing wrestling, right? Where I might end up getting extended with my arm.
You don't want to forcibly get it extended.
Right.
Because that's how you can get torn.
Right. Which is why I will address it beforehand.
But if you stretch, we know that the risks of injury at athletic competition, if you stretch, stretching beforehand limits injury. So we know that you'll have a less risk of injury.
Correct.
If you do active stretching is the best type of stretching before athletic injury.
Correct.
Because you're like, I'm going to be here.
Right.
So let's do it like 3 times. And then it's like kind of looser so that when it comes up, your body knows how to rebound and handle it.
Right. But most people don't stretch, right? They'll just go right into the machine. Or they just go right into the mechanic.
But with stretching limit, so
I'll often have a
pain is injury.
Right.
So it might not be, I got injured, but you're like, you have injury. So if your body's inflamed and it's hurting, if there's injury there, most likely.
Right.
And so then you have to deal with that, get the inflammation down. But really, you don't want to keep aggravating it. So that probably stems along with poor mechanics.
Like I had a client this morning, and he was doing the windmill on the wall, right? Where I put him shoulder against the wall and his arms going up, flipping and going all the way around and coming back, right? And at about this point, he's leaning really far away from the wall to try to get his arm across. And he's like, I feel, the side's really tight. And I said, all right, well, why don't we stretch the pec a little bit? Stretch the pec minor, right? Stretch a little bit, do the doorway stretch, get the lacrosse ball in there. All right, let's go back and do the drill. Oh, that's much better. So he had more success in the drill because we paused, we addressed it, and then we put him back in the drill, right? And so I told him, this is how you use stretching. Like,
you helped me, you stopped me, and you're like, your shoulders are tight. Let's focus more on your shoulders. Let's get your shoulders looser. And then that helped me with the other exercises once we got back to it.
I always deviate. I'll have a game plan of where I'm going,
and then I'll
see something.
You were pretty tuned in. You were watching me very closely the whole time. You're with are you like that with your clients? I think that's such a great thing.
I think that
it's so nice that they know you're watching them.
I'm trying to separate myself from the rest
learn.
of the gang, right?
Yeah.
There's so many trainers out there that, and I think that's also the problem with physical therapy, right? Physical therapy doesn't allow you to create that connection with your client, right? Most of these people have 10 sessions.
Busy schedule.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the client will have 10 sessions authorized from insurance.
Oh, right. You don't have enough.
So you don't have enough time to create that connection. But also the therapy on the therapy side, they're so packed that often they'll have 3 or 4 people they're working with. So how are you going to make a connection with it if you're bouncing around 3 or 4 people, right? I think that in order to be effective with this, people need to feel a little cared for and handheld a little bit.
It makes a huge difference when you do.
I mean, it's I think what's kept. I mean, I have a great retention because people know that I care.
Actually, though.
Yeah.
Actually. And they know, you really know what you're talking about. And when I came in, I was so impressed because you really were like, okay, ground up, let's do an assessment first. And we've known each other for a while, jiu-jitsu, and we've rolled together. Well, I haven't lifted any weights with you. So I really thought we were going to lift weights and I was going to get a full workout in my head, what I thought that was, and I was sore for a few days from the muscles that I realized I was not using.
I went after all those things you're not using.
It helped me because I was like, now is kind of filling in that picture of movement that I needed.
Because see, as a trainer, I got to think about if I push him to his comfort zones, his abilities, how am I really helping him? Right? If I give you more of what
I had
you
to get
like,
uncomfortable.
Well, I had to go against, you expected heavy lifting. We went to mobility and stability elements and extensions and rotations.
I was laying on my back doing dead bugs like this.
Yeah, and the dead bug, the crazy thing is that here's an example of the dead bug where I have a towel placed under you.
Yeah, this is under my lumbar spine, my low back. Right,
and I'm asking the person here to engage their abdominals, not only just by contracting their abdominals, but also using their diaphragm and their breath.
You're getting me breathing with the diaphragmatic
breath. So,
which is more kind of belly out, not giant chest expansion. You're not doing this, right?
No.
You're kind of more controlled on your chest.
I'm trying to. You keep all that pressure of air into the gut, to the whole core area, and then squeezing the core on top of that breath. And now I couldn't move the towel. When you did it right, it was hard for me to pull the towel out, right? When you just tried squeezing your abs, it didn't have enough.
What if my butt's just really big?
Your legs are in the air. Your legs are in the air. That's not an excuse.
All right, it felt like if my butt was too big.
But the other part is their inability to keep their thoracic extended.
Yeah, and then you put the weight on my belly.
Right.
And that helped me realize I was like, okay, I got to keep this hard right here.
But also what the weight did by putting the weight on your stomach, it helped you realize the breath,
movement.
The breath.
Yeah.
When I asked you to still breathe, when I put my hand there instead of the weight, you still breathed and you took a breath and it went into your chest.
Right. And it was all shaky, right?
And now here, when I put this, I said, focus on having it move up and down with the breath. And you had way more control. And once we were done with this drill with the weight on your belly, you were way more effective in the dead bug. You were way more connected.
I felt like
you were
too.
able to connect the breath. Because the diaphragm and the transverse abdominis, they're big players in core stability, but nobody really is thinking about them as the core.
Do you call that breath work, or do you call that core work? Your breathing. Do you think that's just core and it's part of core, or do you think breath work is something separate?
I mean,
because I thought
think
you
it
were
is
like
separate, but
I was
it's
like,
very
I've
connected.
been thinking about that breathing differently. It's because of you. Like this whole last week, I've just been like thinking more deliberately about my breathing and my body position while I'm breathing. If I'm, especially if I'm doing like working out or like lifting weights, or even if I'm just sitting here, that I just want to be like more like aligned.
Well, if we go back to when we were talking about the shoulder health and the predisposition you may or may not have, if we start looking at all the pieces that sent you into this position of thinking that you have a predisposition, and I go, oh, well, look at your core, it's not supporting you enough. And look at your thoracic extension, it isn't good enough. So all these things now obviously are going to put different demand on your shoulder. So as I regress and we look at, so why does this person have overactive traps? And you start thinking about the primary and the secondary breathing muscles, right? And if a person spends 90% of their breathing up in the chest and neck area, isn't it a surprise that they develop strong neck muscles and big, thick back muscles?
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, they're just using them. I see every single breath as a rep, as a tiny baby rep. And if how many breaths you take in a day?
Over 1,000.
Right.
Thousands.
And all the years you've lived up to this point. Now, as a baby, you were breathing correctly. You watch a baby breathe, their bellies go up and down. You start watching adults breathe, it's all their chest going up and down. So no, I see a
Because their
giant...
bellies are full.
That might be it. But I see a giant correlation in between the weakness that people are experiencing in their hips and all the hip problems and all that knee problem stuff, right? It's weakness, right? The main diaphragmatic muscles, the breathing muscles should be the diaphragm, the abdominal muscles, the pelvic floor, all the stuff in the hips should be getting involved in the breathing, but they're not.
Your hips are related to breathing?
Every time you take a breath, you're going to feel all of that expand. Watch on the dead bug, when you're in the dead bug and you're extending your leg and you take that breath, how your lower abdominals are connected to your hip bone, right?
Well, you have me put my knees in the air.
Right. So the next step, the more advanced, is to kick the leg out.
Really?
And it make you extend, because that's going to make you want to lift the back off the floor. And the job is to keep it on the ground while you extend, right? And then that makes it harder, right? We didn't get to that level because you were already having trouble keeping the
I'm just a baby
here.
on the ground. I'm like learning day one how to move on the ground.
But seriously,
on my back.
Going back to the breathing, right? If we look at the breathing,
all right, now let's see the expert do it. I pulled as hard as I could on this towel, and there was like a concrete block on it. You should people at home should try this. Like try this out, because if you're stabilizing your abs the right way, even probably doing sit-ups and whatever, right? Like you should be in this position where you're more stable on your back. This is how you align yourself. Right. Is that right?
Right. I mean, it starts there. And
it starts there.
We're doing something this simple. Right, people get bored because there's not complexity to it. Yeah, you're yanking on the towel.
I was.
When it's something this simple, you have the ability to sense.
Then you start doing this.
Yeah, so that's the real dead bug.
This is a strong core.
Thank you. That's the real. Yeah, I mean, I've worked at and look,
but what a strong core is like the ability to harness your upper body to your lower body, connect them, and then allow you to do movement of your upper body, potentially powerful, and lower body separately.
Correct.
And then connect them. Correct. So you don't fall in half and break apart.
If you think of the simplistic idea of a swimmer going through the water, right? If you like Michael Phelps, if Michael Phelps was wiggling as he swam,
he's not a fish.
He's not going to be very fast.
Right.
It's because they stay straight. The core, the body stays pretty locked
in.
The
extremities can produce power.
Yes. So stability can produce mobility, which in turn can produce power. Right. That you have to create the stability. So if people aren't thinking about their core, their hips, and their feet, that's why we started with your feet. That's the very first thing we started talking about. Even though I knew I was going to end up at your shoulder, I wanted to see where you were at with your feet. We started with squatting and footwork and single leg stances and stuff like that to see where you were, what your balance points were. And then that's when we quickly start to see, oh, look. Then we went to the abs and we saw, okay, that he's having a problem holding the towel. And then
and I thought I was pretty good at this stuff.
In the roller exercise, right? The one that had you just rolling the roller up the wall, you having trouble to stay out of your neck.
So you think it's a muscle kind of like activation. You have to have the right motion, but you have to be using your muscles the right way.
Correct. Re-educating the body to connect better, to be more efficient, right? And then understanding what are some of these things that may be aiding those things. Like Is breath work going to fix your thoracic mobility? No, but it'll aid it.
It'll help.
It'll aid. I just say stack the deck. Like do enough. If something gives you 1 or 2% improvement, and you do 10 of those things.
That's what I'm all about right now.
Right? It's like,
why not?
Everybody's looking for the one thing that gives you 30% improvement. Like that doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
You got to do enough of the little
Maybe
things.
surgery. Surgery will get you 30% or more better.
Well, I mean,
if you got a bad problem, but you got to be down here.
Correct.
But most people are up here. And if you think you're down here, you're only in like little bits.
Right.
Don't be so down here. If you have a real significant problem, you can't lift your arm anymore, then you have different. A bigger hit on your body.
That's a different.
And surgery may be the answer to intervene.
Correct.
Right? But then now we get people a lot better with surgery back to normal, which is baseline. That's what people just want. For me, is to get back to normal.
Right.
And then we're now kind of hovering around here. So now we can get optimized. So, I'm using more like supplements. I want to get into like a little bit about like your diet and stuff, because you're obviously clearly very fit, and you see people that do well and you see people that have problems, and you kind of see what works. So then it makes you kind of stick to these things, I imagine. But when you are optimizing, you're kind of hovering around this, like, hopefully like 100%. I'm really like primed out. Like I feel strong. I feel healthy. Like my brain is working, my memory's good. Like there's definitely times where you're really in a really good state. And then I think like you can then prevent more injuries by keeping your mechanics good, but then also keeping the intake good. So like your performance is not just like redlined. You're not just like,
it all plays along. I mean, if you're
like, you got to get through the long haul.
I mean, even if you take something as direct as you show up tired to the gym and you're not paying attention, and
you're more at risk of injury.
Right. That's a very clear example of that. But if your body isn't up to par with all these other tiny little things, that may also be occurring. You could be stressing it
too much and not getting enough recovery.
And that's how you eventually get up hurt, right? Like you start ignoring these tiny little mishaps. You that'll be all right. I'll be okay. I'll get past this. And then they just keep piling on one another until it becomes a problem where they need surgery.
I think it's a real thing. It does happen. It can get to surgery. I think what's more common is people just have chronic pain in like these joints, and they're just like, I just always have pain there. Like I always have pain in my neck. But people accept it.
But they do. But let's be real. They didn't always, right? At a certain point, they didn't. So where did they don't even, some people don't even know when it started. Some people do. Some people know exactly
when
the
phones
moment.
Came out.
Right? But a lot of people don't. Yeah, phones don't help. But people don't even know that
it's level of ergonomic risks.
The awareness is crap, right? People don't often listen. Like the patients that come to you, I bet you they got signs years before.
Right.
Years.
And that's kind of where you're able to see some of these things, either people who have had serious injuries. Right. I see them typically when they have a problem bad enough to come in and see me, that I can help them with, which, I treat shoulder problems in all different stages. And that's kind of what I do, is like help guide people with like good advice. Right. And so like when they're in a very bad state sometimes people just have pain that's been going on for a long time and they want to get it figured out. And I can help them with that too.
Right.
But like I spend a little bit of time with people compared to like how long they've had problems for, but I'm really good at figuring out problems. Right. And so I can help guide them, and then they can get a lot better. Even sometimes they just meet me once and then they go on this path to success, right? And then they met Alonzo and now they're on this like workout plan. So that's where I think there's these like big gaps in getting these injuries that happen. Let's just start there, where people just like, are your shoulders like really bad, and then we can get it better to a recovered state. Okay, where we think is a good kind of recovered state. Physical therapy is part of that healing. I definitely promote XR nutrition for surgical recovery, and I recommend it for really 2 weeks, but you should take it for 3 months. I take XR almost every day, which is like a supplement that is not a sponsor on this podcast. Honestly, I'm talking about it like it's a sponsor. But the thing that it does is it kind of fills those essential amino acids, the vitamins, all that stuff in a regulated way that you can just take regularly. That's easy for me to do.
I think that's it.
But then I feel better when I'm doing that stuff. Like I feel optimized. And so I know I'm like recovering, because then I can do my jiu-jitsu, I can work out, but I'm not like redlining it.
Right.
And then I know I can like recover better. But it's because I know that now.
Supplements is that it makes it easy for people, right? Somebody did the hard thinking for you.
That's what it is.
They put the formula for you.
It's a shortcut.
It's a shortcut. I use very few because I eat very well.
Tell me about your diet. I was really curious. You told me you look great. You have a lot of energy. You do jiu-jitsu, you work out, you train people. You're like a really, really active guy. What is your diet like? Tell me like a typical day and kind of how you structure your diet.
I try to obviously stay balanced in every meal. Right, I really do try to create an element of balance. So everything's got some protein.
What'd you have today?
This morning I had my usual 2 eggs. I do asparagus, mushrooms, onion, little mix, grill them up. The 2 eggs, 2 pieces of toast with avocado.
So you do 2 eggs and 2 eggs, so 4 eggs?
So no, 2 eggs.
Oh, 2 eggs.
2 eggs. 2 pieces of toast with avocado and all those veggies. So that's my breakfast.
And then do you work out or do you cold plunge or do you any kind of...
I do cold plunges when I feel like my body needs it. I wish I had access to one more regularly. I go to, obviously, these studios that have...
I'm going to get one here at the studio.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so I'm getting it for so we can do cold plunge. And
but I do feel there's a lot of benefits to that, to the cold plunge.
Yeah.
But
for anti-inflammation, right?
More than anything, when I'm feeling like a little beat up.
So it's like more like when you need it. You kind of use it to recover.
Yeah. I mean, I use that. I use, heating elements, that kind of stuff. You cold, hot, compress.
What do you like for
therapy.
Heat?
I use an infrared blanket. It's got infrared.
Is it like a battery powered or something?
No,
like
it's
that?
plugged. It's plugged to the wall. But I also go to the places that have the contrast therapy, so infrared sauna. Right to the cold plunge, back and forth. So I love that mix.
And then what about like therapy devices like Theragun?
I use Theragun. I mean, I have one at the gym, one at the house.
And you use it on me too. Like when my leg was tight, right? It was like my quad. You used that.
So we were trying to stretch your calf, right?
Yeah, my calf.
We couldn't,
and my quad.
And we couldn't get past your quad.
That's what it was.
So we went first. We did the roller to the quad, and then I used the Theragun, and then we could get to the part that we were targeting, which was your calf, right? But look at what we had to do in order to get to the calf. So often people will find the obstruction of the quad and be like, "Oh, I can't get to that."
Right.
Like I'm stuck here. And they'll
help my whole knee. I can move my whole knee fully
you,
afterwards.
If you start to regress a little bit, listen to what the body is telling you. Yeah, you wanted to stretch the calf there, but we can't get to the calf without feeling like you described it as tension in the knee.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, you said it feels like it's tight and I feel
when
pressure.
I was trying to stretch
when
my
you were
calf.
trying to bend your knee, deep bend, right? And so we got you out of that stretch. Went right into the quad because I'm seeing the obstruction here. So I go right after the quad. I use the Theragun and I put you back on the stretch and you were able to get there.
Right. That's exactly
so
what
that's exactly how people should utilize stretching and the information that they're getting while they're stretching. That's what I think. Like when people stretch and they notice a left and right difference, don't ignore that. Like that's telling you something very useful and address it and explore it. Right?
People ask me, what's the best way to stretch the shoulder? What do you think? If somebody just wants to stretch their shoulder out, is it like against the wall, do you think?
The problem is that the shoulders are complex. Like there's so much structure in there that one angle stretches this part, another angle stretches that part. So I think that you have to go at it in all of the angles, specifically the one that you're having more limitations on, range of motion to where you're not feeling pain, right? No pain, no gain needs to stay with, muscle pain from too many reps, not movement or mechanics, right? Like I think some of these ideas of fitness too have trickled into other parts of fitness that don't need to be there. Like if there's pain, you need to listen to that pain.
Listen to your body.
Sometimes there's pain that you need to listen to.
And in the morning, I call it kind of like body checks. You look in the mirror, you kind of like pat your eyes. You look, make sure you don't see any new moles or your eyes kind of like droopy or whatever. You that's how you recognize you have problems. So you have to do these check-ins with your body. So then we were talking about your diet. So then after breakfast, do you work out? In the morning?
No, usually I start with clients at 6 or 7.
Oh, okay.
And go
so you start
straight
your day
to lunch. Yeah, and go straight all the way to lunch. I don't get my workout till the evening most of the time.
Do you eat at lunch?
I do. I eat a really good lunch.
What do you eat for lunch?
Usually I'll have my go-to, believe it or not, is some quesadillas with chicken. I love chicken.
You're okay with cheese and chicken?
Yeah. I don't drink milk. I don't. Cheese is the only dairy product that I really eat. That I really, I don't drink. I don't drink much milk, but I do love cheese, and I feel it's a great source of protein. I don't have any digestive issues with it. I think people should also be aware of that. Like, pay attention to what your body is saying.
I like that cotija cheese.
Yeah, cotija is great.
Oh my
it's
goodness.
really low in fat. And,
oh really?
Yeah. And,
I eat more than.
But the fat's
make sure we got it.
Fat's not the culprit. It's carbs. People overeating carbs, right?
Yeah, carbs are the killer.
I think that's the other part in nutrition is you have to be honest with yourself and know what your vices vices are.
Carbs
right?
and beer.
You know, so as I was telling him, like, I like beer too, right?
Yeah.
And what I do to keep myself checked, right, is I only put 2 beers in the fridge. So that if I want that third one, I got to wait till it gets cold.
It's warm, so I'm not
and
going
I
to
don't
drink
want,
it.
yeah, I don't want it. Seriously,
great idea.
It deters me so much.
I'm going to do that 100%.
Most of them are in the cupboard. I put 2 in the fridge, and I just bring one in every time I drink the other. And I'm never, I never do not get my fix, right? But I also don't overdo it, right? Yeah, so making sure that you don't overdo your vices, understanding, you know, the simplicities of what you really need, right? You need X amount of carbs, X amount of protein, X amount of fat.
Do you think that you, like, when did you start understanding your nutrition? Oh,
I mean, as an athlete, you have to.
As an athlete.
As an athlete, you had to. I mean, I've cut weight. I can't tell you how many times I've cut weight.
So that helped you just be more aware of like what your diet in and your exercise
I've
out.
never been obese, right? Like I can't, when I have clients that are obese, like I can't relate to them in that sense, but I've food deprived myself. I've seen guys make themselves throw up, right? I've eaten too much to where I did throw up, right? Like I've had some of the problems that eating disorders bring. And I've seen some of my teammates go into some serious eating disorder.
It's not
problems.
a good thing. It can affect your health very quickly.
It's real, man. I mean, some of these guys, and I'm talking about some really fit people, and end up really jacked up because of their eating. The complexes that they develop, these, you know, ideas of overeating and fat, and and the social pressures. I think all of these things really make people do really crazy things.
It can run into psychological problems for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is why I really, you know, when I look at food, I'm like, what is it that my body needs?
It's called the disorder for a reason.
Take the emotion out of it, right? What is it that my body needs? Right. So that's why I'm like, I'm going to need some carbs. It's early in the morning, so I want some pieces of bread, right? Like if I was going to bed, maybe I eat less carbs. Some people love carbs. That's the other
It's probably not a good idea to eat a lot of carbs before bed, though, right? Like
I think so.
It's better. What they say is 40 grams. I keep seeing this on Instagram. 40 grams of casein type protein because it's longer digesting. It makes sense to have a higher dose of longer, slowly digesting proteins, and then that'll help restore your muscles so they don't break down while you're asleep.
Correct.
You want to maintain muscle. I'm very pro muscle.
But I also take a very logical approach.
Pro-human and pro-muscle.
If I'm going to go do a sporting event, that's the day I'm going to eat carbs, right? I'm going to have a pasta dinner that night or maybe pancakes that morning, right? I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I'm going to this endeavor and I'm going to eat some stuff.
Do you think it's better to eat carbs before or like you have a big event like that? Or
I've
is it more
always
important
done it that way.
After,
and this is the
or
other
do you need
thing.
both?
I think you definitely need it before, right?
Before.
Well, the low needs to happen before. Yeah. Right? They're not accessible the moment you eat them, right?
Right.
You still have the breakdown to have.
It's a glycogen in your muscles, and then you have more energy for your sport.
Correct.
So you kind of have to stuff it in there.
Correct.
Right?
You got to kind of store it ahead of time.
Ahead of time.
I do feel like cycling, for example, having to eat while I ride, right? Having to maintain some of that glucose, right? It helped me not what they call bonking.
Hit the wall.
Bonking. I mean,
that's when your muscles deplete of.
Yeah, I mean, you're pushing as hard as you possibly can, and nothing's happening. Like, and the first time it ever happened to me, I could not believe what was happening. And if it wasn't for the fact that there was riders that normally tend to be behind me, in front of me, and I couldn't catch them, I would have thought that this was just something odd or weird.
How do you avoid that? You just use more carbs.
Yeah. Eat better. Be conscious that you're on this situation that requires more fuel.
That happened to me when I did a half marathon for the first time. I hit the wall at like 10 and a half, 11 miles, and it's like 13 and a half miles. And I still had 2 miles to go, and my legs stopped working. I was like, I just had to like drag myself across, you know, because I had to stop running. Because I ran too hard from the start, and I hadn't trained that well. So I was like, but I learned from that. You know, I'm like, I know if I'm going to, first of all, I'm never going to run a half marathon again. If I have to run, I'm just going to run a full marathon. Have you run marathons?
No, just cycled long. I've done hundreds.
What's the longest for cycling?
100
miles.
100 miles.
Yeah, that's a long ways.
Long ride.
Cycling is really cool though. It's great exercise.
Yeah, and then some of these are like really challenging climbs. You know,
you go cool places, right?
Yeah,
you can.
I mean, even some of the stuff that I've seen in my car, like Mulholland Drive, I've driven that street how many years, right? But being on a bike, it's a whole different ride.
Yeah.
It's a whole different street. It's crazy how that is. But no, I mean, back to fueling.
Yeah, fueling.
I never really bonked again. You know, after that time of seeing what happened and understand, I immediately researched it. Like I immediately started to try to get more knowledgeable about the facts. And once I understood it, I come at it different now. I prep different. I got different stuff in my water bottle now, right? I get ready for those things, you know? So whether it's a predisposition or it'll happen because the situation is laid out in this manner, know what's coming and play with it and use it to your advantage. I think most people feel like they're powerless. And there's a lot of power that you can do.
If you know things, especially, right?
Information, I'll give it to you.
So you know, like, okay, I'm going to go exercise regularly. That's really good. Exercise is really good. So you should exercise regularly, pretty much every day.
Start calling it maintenance.
Maintenance?
Yeah, I'm gonna maintenance
Exercise?
every day, so I can move. So I can play with the kids.
Movement.
So I can, you know, pick up the grocery bags and not feel like my back is killing me.
How long do people need to do you think, to do maintenance? Like how long minimum?
Honestly,
and per,
it really
per day and per week.
How efficient are they?
Well, say shoulders, say upper extremity, say shoulders. Let's say arms, legs, and then like neck as like different categories.
I think if everybody does 30 to 45 minutes, either every other day or at least every day.
That's
right?
what I say.
Right?
I say you need to do at least 2 to 3 days a week.
2 to 3 days a week or 45 minutes. You can make it smaller and more focused if you really are attentive to what you need and understand your body and understand all these things we're talking about, to where you are honest with yourself. Once you understand your own limitations, where you're weak at, the thing about it too is that most people are going after the things that make them feel good. They keep lifting heavy. They keep doing the hard runs, right?
I'd say keep coming back so you see some results.
But I feel like if you don't start addressing, I have a client right now that's trying to put on a ton of muscle, right? And I'm starting to see his range of motion start to get impacted. And I said, hey man, like you need to work them out together. You're going to lose your range of motion if you understand the way muscle mass works and look at the mobility of a bodybuilder versus a yoga person. Here, two completely different abilities, right? Very fit people both. And find that you are working both areas so that you don't lose any of them, right? You get too big, you won't have the range of motion anymore.
Right.
So understand what's happening and be very focused about your breathing. I mean, your workouts, and plan them right.
There's a whole realm of functional strength, and I have some patients of mine that do functional strength competitions, like Spartan races, and where they have to like carry stuff, do like farmers walks and stuff. And it's interesting because it gets you thinking, like, obviously that's going to be high injury prone. Yeah, that's why they're in my office. Yeah, you know, because I got to fix them. But they're older folks who are now in like their 50s and they're doing really extreme stuff. You know, it's like it's risky, but like they love it. You know, and it's almost like jiu-jitsu. It's risky. I got injured, you know, but like I love it. But now after being injured, it's like the old guys, they know, don't lift such heavy weights, you know, like lift it, be moderate about it so that you don't get the same injury again. You don't have the same problem, because if you keep doing the same thing.
I'm not deadlifting like I used to. I'm not
you
squatting like I used to.
You change how you do it. It doesn't mean you stop. You just
I do it differently.
Make sure you do it so you can keep doing it.
Right.
You know, I never want to have surgery again because I had to take so much time off of training and working out and stuff. That's the other part. I didn't like that at all.
Recovery is serious.
So I want to avoid that.
Yeah. I mean, when people pain makes people listen. That's my favorite part about people dealing with problems, is that they'll actually pay attention.
Well, by the time it hurts, it forces you to.
Right.
You know,
I mean,
and it's
they want to get out of pain, so they'll try anything.
That's the number one thing that makes my patients happy, is if they have less pain. Yeah. You know, and then that's how, you know, a lot of times, like, I'll judge things more kind of critically of like how things look, like if the degrees range of motion or their strength, but typically people are happy when it doesn't hurt anymore.
Right.
You know, and then if the function is really good, then it's like home run, great, everything's awesome. But like if you can just, you know, hit the ball, you know, and it doesn't hurt anymore, you're like, I got on base, I'm good over here. You know, the stress is off.
It's the progression, right? It's the progression. Can you keep getting bigger and stronger? Yeah, but if in your journey of getting bigger and stronger, you start recognizing these other limitations, slow down over here, address that, get back in the game, and bring it back, right? Like, people don't, they ignore it. They just keep mowing right through that moment and, you know, find themselves in a bigger pickle down the road.
And you know, because they probably want to keep exercising too. Like, you know, they want to keep like, I got to stay fit. I got, you know.
Well, but it's also like you were saying, like, it feels good, right? Like they like Jones for it almost, like, which I totally understand, right? Like, I think that's why. It's
kind of like doing your homework. You got to just go do your homework. It's important.
They have to take the approach that I took.
Make sure your body moves right. Okay, it's important.
Take the approach that I took. and I say this because I'm gonna be 50 in a couple of years, man. I'm not.
Wow, you look so good.
Thank you.
50, man. You look young and healthy and fit, and 50 is like the new. I don't know. What do you call it? 30?
I would say. I mean,
kind of.
But look. If I wasn't honest with myself about what's happening with the aging process, and if I wasn't honest with the
plus
things
you're
that
Mexican.
I've encountered,
You got good skin.
I don't think that. Maybe that helps
You
a
got
little bit.
good
The
skin.
skin.
It helps.
But if I wasn't honest, I would have injured myself a long time ago. I think it's because I've always wanted to be a pretty active and competitive. I still compete in jiu-jitsu. I mean, you know, I just did the nationals.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were competing too.
Yeah, I've already done 2 tournaments this year.
What was your last one that you did?
The North American Championships, the IBJJF.
Oh, the IBJJFs, the Masters.
I did Masters 6.
And
4.
Open.
I did Open, and so I did my division and did Open. I took first in my division and third in the Open division.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A guy 180
brown
pounds.
belt, right?
Yeah, brown belt. One more for black. So these are all high level guys, right? But because I want to continue to do that, it has forced me to be more informed about how to keep myself able to do that. So I had to do the homework, right? Like when I went started with PT and the things that I was getting PT on early on, I mean, if you would have been my therapist, you would have been like, wow, this guy asks a ton of questions. This guy's taking notes. You know, I'm like, you know, a student in a classroom pretty much. And I'm asking you, why are you doing that? Or why'd you do that? Or what's the point of this? Right? Like I'm really, really trying to understand what it is that you're doing for me. And then try to expand on that knowledge and use that practice so that I can get back to my game. Right. But it takes that level of commitment in wanting to know. Right. Like I always tell, so I do youth groups and I'll turn to the kids that, you know, tend to be a little distracted when we're talking about mechanics and biomechanics because they really don't want to hear this. And I say to them, could you fix my broken toaster?
I could.
And they're like, no. Nope. Like, could you fix my toaster? I said, if you knew everything about toasters, could you fix the toaster then? Right? Like, it's knowledge. It isn't.
Oh, toaster.
Yeah.
I thought you said, could you fix my broken toaster? I was like, I could probably stick a pin in there, but
no, the toaster.
Yeah.
But just knowledge, right?
Yeah, of
just
course.
To have the knowledge. Yeah. And if you really want to be an athlete.
Like knowledge is a good thing. Like if you can learn something, it might help you one day. Even if it, you know, you don't understand it right now, just try to learn as much as you can.
So as an athlete, if you want to be an athlete, you want to learn as much about the body as you can. From how to get it strong, how to keep it nutritiously sound, to how to get back from injury.
Do you think there's a way that people could avoid getting injured?
Yeah, absolutely.
How? What do you think the optimal, is it like a routine? Is it exercise? Is it diet? Is it a combination of those things? Like what do you think it is to avoid injury?
I think in anything, you're not gonna have a one thing answer.
It's not living in a bubble.
No.
Right?
What it is being honest. I go back to being honest with yourself, right? Like how can you keep yourself healthy? If you're starting to get stiff, start understanding that that's a new thing. Right, and do something towards that. Right, if you start seeing yourself having a gut, address that. Like, don't ignore these things that are occurring. Can stretching regularly help? Of course, it's going to help. But if you're ignoring your crappy diet, you might still end up in a pickle anyway. Like, it all plays and it all really does interconnect, and you have to really pay attention to all the pieces. And to whatever the problems are for you, maybe for you or maybe different for someone else and for myself. But knowing that just because you're doing this doesn't mean it's going to work for me. That's the problem with nutrition.
But it may work for a lot of people though. You know, like I think there's patterns of people that fall into categories, you know, and then because the reason I bring this up is because I think people are becoming more independently active now. Do you know what I mean by that? Like over time, I feel like there's more fit people. I don't know if that's just because like California, or like I feel like there's more it's increasingly more aware that the people who are like, maybe it was COVID that did this, because it got me exercising and I started thinking about my health more, and I started just getting more fit, and I started like losing weight. I was like, I have some extra weight I could lose.
Well, I will say that
but then there's other people that just think like they're just totally against movement and fitness, and like they're just like, they don't necessarily even think it's important, or they know it's important, and they're just like, I'm just checking the boxes, so I'm just gonna kind of go to the gym and do enough.
I'm gonna go for a walk
and show I did a little picture at me at the gym, like so everybody knows I work out.
Yeah,
but you're not like really doing actual work that's making you better.
Right.
So like, I think those are the two big categories. Like people end up kind of getting really into it. You did that really early on. I wasn't like that though. I never really I didn't play a lot of sports when I was growing up. I played football in high school, and then that's when I was kind of more into like just like competition and like working out and doing hard things. But I was never like a super athlete, you know. And then doing jiu-jitsu kind of got me thinking like, I can still compete. Like I've competed too, you know, at every belt level, and I'm going to still compete. I didn't even get injured doing competition, but the injury has kept me away right when I was getting into my next like rounds of competition, you know? And so now it's been long enough that I can start to train again. I want to really focus on my mobility and like my mechanics, because I know that strength is important for jiu-jitsu for me.
After seeing,
and I like it. I like
our
being
session,
strong.
what would you say from our session? What are your takeaways that you need to implement so that you can get back on the competitive mat?
Well, first of all, I have to have patience, and like learning what you taught me is going to incorporate, I think, my understanding of mechanics with like my recovery. Yeah. Because like my recovery, where I'm going to feel I've recovered from my surgery for my shoulder when I get back to jiu-jitsu competition. And I don't even care if I win. I just want to get through that without an injury at the competition.
Right.
And then I'll feel like it's successful.
Like you did.
But I know I'm not ready for that right now.
But out of the things we went over, like out of the checkpoints, essentially, which ones do you think are the ones that stand out the most, that would make the biggest difference in that?
My thoracic movement. Awesome. And my core instability.
I think those are the two.
It wasn't strong enough. And doing what I thought it was supposed to be.
Getting stronger support from the core is going to give you a lot of base for that movement of the shoulder. And then the thoracic mobility will give you the range to have the mechanics to be able to be efficient with your movement.
How long do you think it takes to see those changes? Like in somebody that comes in, say you do day one assessment of somebody, and then they're like, I want to get a bigger chest, and I want to have like the ideals that you're talking about, or like they say they want to get abs or something like that, right? They want to get really fit.
They're at the wrong place though.
Okay. You can't get people abs?
No, I can, but
you can, but how long would it take to see some kind of changes in your body where you could see some like what you're talking about, like the structural support? Like for me, it was pretty immediate that I've been working on it, that even after a week, my mechanics have felt stronger with like my stability. Well, so I feel it, but I may not like see it.
So I guess the answer to that would be, how old is the person and how deep in the rabbit hole are they, right? Like for someone like you, we're talking just stronger elements in your core and more awareness.
That you thought.
And as far as the thoracic, I think the thoracic would be the thing that would take the longest, because you're trying to move joints, right? And if there's stiffness in the joint, it's going to take a minute.
Yeah, for me, how long would that take, do you think? Like to get it worked out where it's like it's good now.
Let's be honest here. How much time does this person spend in things that make the spine stiff? So sitting down, bent over.
I operate a lot too.
Right? And how much time do they spend correcting that? Or in the corrective, in the other side of that posture, right? I think it's all time. It's like a scale. You spend all the time over here, and then you try to sprinkle a couple things over here to try to offset that.
Some things I tell people, you've been doing it that way your whole life, and you want me to correct it in one day.
Correct.
You know, and I can do that, but then it's going to try to go back to the way it was before.
When people ask me how long,
you got to fight that.
It really depends on how adamant are you going to be.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
And can you be aware enough to get yourself out of the daily mechanics? Kind of when we go back to the audio engineer that we were talking about. It's her understanding of how many hours she spends on that console and breaking it up in a way where she can get some shoulder health elements that'll make her feel better. If she stays working at that console and throws in 2 days of mobility, he is sprinkled here and there.
It'll help her, won't it?
It will, but it won't make the big difference. Like you're looking for that difference to where your shoulder's working again. And
how much do you need to do do would you say? Like,
you have to be very aware. Yeah,
like 3 or 4 days a week.
And it depends how deep in the hole is this
regular.
Person. Consistency is the key to everything, man. Like you do something part-time. Like the reason why your shoulder moves poorly is because you've been mechanically moving poorly for a long time. So you have to uneducate and re-educate. That's a double whammy there. You're doing, you're taking away bad habits, which, by the way, we all know how hard habits are to break, right? And then you're going to create a brand new habit, and you're going to spend, half an hour on Sundays to try to squeeze that into your life. And so that's where people
you have to though.
Well, yeah,
to make it better.
Well, I would say in that situation, people need to realize you don't have the time, right? So how do you sprinkle? How do you find moments where you sprinkle these drills? Like we're talking about, taking a small break, getting up off your desk, doing a wall stretch real quick, and coming back to work.
It will help.
If you do that, and it takes you a stretch like that could take you 15 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe 45 if you sit there and breathe a little bit,
that's a
maybe
while. It's a long one.
minute, right? But if you do that 3 times in a day, 3 little 40-second drills, while you do that, you'll undo a lot. Now, if you start really becoming adamant and putting every other day where you're doing drills, then you're really going to undo some things. So it's like, how fast do you want to tip the scale? And how aware are you about the things you're doing that are making you imbalanced, right? What are the regular life patterns that you've adopted? Like I often see people cross the same leg, right? Lean in the same direction, right? Stand on one leg more than the other. Right side compression. Almost everybody's got right side compression. Some of the stuff that we were talking about with the PRI stuff, right?
What is PRI?
The Postural Restoration Institute.
What do they do?
They look at posture, and they focus a lot on breathing. Right? Breathing is one of the primary components on why everything starts to go
Can you
awry.
breathe? Yes.
Can you breathe well?
I wasn't breathing well.
No.
I didn't even understand my breathing.
Right.
And here, let me show this little section, because I think this is a really interesting part that you were showing me when we were talking about the thoracic, kind of like the thoracic posture when you're breathing. And it's this one right here. But let me get to that section. Now the dead bug is over. Oops. Strip it out.
It's not letting you.
There it goes. This is hydraulic and hydrostatic pressure because it pushes back.
Correct.
And that's important because then you can have a lot more strength and stability.
Yeah.
It stabilizes you.
Correct. Produces a lot of power out of that, the brace, right?
And that's how your core can be more stable.
Right. I mean, if we look at, I'm comparing it to this can here, and there's 3 very important aspects to the can that you need to produce internally so that you have success like that can did, right? The can has fluid in it, right? So when creating diaphragmatic pressure, you need air. Obviously, you're not going to put water in your stomach, right? So you're going to fill it with air, so that gives you that element. The can is sealed. Right, you need to contract the abdominals to create that seal, right?
So when you contract like this, it's not just alignment. But you get it aligned,
correct,
which then allows that position to be stronger.
Correct, more structurally sound, right? The more structurally sound. And when people do hinges or stuff like that without the core being braced already, you'll see the ribs flare.
Hinges? What do you mean hinges?
Like deadlifts,
right? Like hip hinges.
Or squats, right? Like, or even an overhead press.
Right. That's where you're kind of at risk for doing that one, right?
The ribs opening up real far up, right? And going into your lower lumbar for support. But the other aspect is the pelvis, right? The pelvis can also tilt backwards, creating the same extension in the lower back,
right? And
asking for stability out of your lower back,
right?
So whether your rib cage flies up or your pelvis moves back, if they're not connected with good pressure, you're essentially have a hole in your can. I call it a power leak, right? And you can't keep everything stacked well. Therefore, you can't create the power, right? Like if you get hurt in your foot, right, and it's just your foot that's hurt, but I ask you to press hard with that leg like a leg press, you're not going to have the same strength as if you're healthy.
Right.
And it's not the quad that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with the quad, right, or your glute. There's nothing wrong with those other muscles. I hurt your foot, but your brain isn't going to give you the ability to access the power. So it isn't necessarily a loss of power when you don't stack it well because you're weak. It's a loss of power because your body recognizes that it's not in an optimal position. So now it's not going to give you the power you're looking for. And what does your body do? Look for it for another spaces and places.
And you compensate.
Here comes the lower back. The lower back jumps in to help.
I see.
And now you're extending, right? And I think on top of that, if you add poor breathing patterns to that, where the person's already very necky and very strong up in the top, and you start trickling more of these elements, then the shoulder injury becomes almost inevitable.
Right.
Almost like you're stacking the deck against you in that sense. And you're really not going to have the stability in your core, the extension in your thoracic. And, rotator cuff exercises are important, but also understand the serratus anterior, also understand the trap
it's funny
and the
that you say
rhomboid
that.
and all these things that also help keep the shoulder healthy.
It's not
just a shoulder problem.
It's not. And I thought, I used to have this kind of belief, even, just from my training and where, I have interaction with physical therapists, but really just doing rotator cuff exercises on its own to try to strengthen your rotator cuff is not
It's not as successful as people think.
Missing the boat on that.
Yeah, I mean, is it beneficial?
It's helpful,
yeah, exactly,
sure. But it's not enough to say this is all that you need to do.
But it's funny because that's the type of thinking everybody has for everything, man. Like when people go, I tried acupuncture, that stuff didn't work. I'm like,
what did you expect?
Exactly.
It to do?
And also, like, they're like, well, I'm going to try cupping next. And they're like, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I do acupuncture sometimes. I do cupping sometimes.
Right.
I do massages sometimes. I do Theragun. And I also stretch. And then I also strengthen. Right? Like, one thing ain't going to do it, dude. Like, you're looking for these people are looking for the one answer. Right? And it is understanding that all of these things together are what's going to help. I've even had people go, well, I want to see which one's the one really making the difference. Do you want to see which one's the most successful, or do you want to feel better?
Well, you know.
Do you want to feel
and
better?
You're like, why would you use stuff that doesn't work?
Right.
So it's like I'm telling you, you advise people.
Right.
Like this is I learned a lot from you, just kind of how you showed me how you use your tools and like what to focus on, like what you were concerned about in me just by the assessment, which was cool, because then I knew like you were pretty tuned in to the mechanics from the start. So like the mechanics have to be right. So it's like whatever it takes to get the mechanics right.
I've had people leave the studio because I'm not going to let them go heavy yet.
I can see that. It's
like,
almost frustrating. It gets to a point where you're just like,
they're mad. They get mad. Honestly, they
like, when are we going to do?
They get mad.
This is like,
and
I've had enough of this.
Well, and I mean, I told one client, because he had a pretty significant hip issue there, where I could see the squatting was completely uneven, and he wanted to go heavy, and I was refusing. And so finally one day we got kind of into a little bit of an argument, and I said, all right,
this is not the place for that.
Well, I told them this. I said, I'll come up with a document that says that we are aware of the issue. I will describe what I see, and both of us signing off that you don't want me to treat it, that you just want to lift heavy.
So that way you're strengthening the muscle and you're isolating that, right?
What do you think he said?
He probably said, that's not a good idea.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and go keep doing what you're doing. It's like, fine. Like, if you want to break yourself, I don't want to help you.
Yeah, but that's not the goal here.
Right. I mean, I want to get you there.
It's,
right?
When I've had patients before that they may want surgery, they may not want surgery. They might, the treatments, people want to, and they'll get to the treatment. It's like, we have to agree on a diagnosis first.
Right.
We have to agree on the diagnosis. That means I come up with the diagnosis. You might think you know what it is, but we're going to come to an agreement that we both agree that's what's causing your problems. Right. We have to do that first. And then the next part is the treatment. I will then offer you potential treatment. It might be therapy. A lot of times it's surgery. And then we then agree on the treatment. So those are two separate things. So if we're not agreeing on a diagnosis, we're not gonna even get to the agreement on the treatment part.
You kill it right there.
Right. Because that tells me that particular case is potentially, you guys don't have an agreement on what the outcome should be, which is like not having injuries, and he's having whatever improvement in his life that he wants to do. So then that's on him, right? So then you guys just have a disagreement on that. Your goals are to help people and to make them stronger and fitter. And that's kind of what I had in mind when I came in too, was like, I want to get stronger for sure, but I knew that you were really involved in like kind of overall body mechanics and health and fitness. And so I came in really open-minded, because I know you're a specialist at that. Like, you're a trainer, and you're a trainer who's a specialist at, like, that's what you have is like clientele. So you assess people and then you get results, and like you have happy clients, right? And what would you say like your biggest success story was as like a trainer?
I would say that I have
like,
two
what do you think, like, the
cases.
most progress that you've seen out of, like, somebody who came in that
My
either
mom.
expected
My
or
mom.
didn't expect it?
My mom.
Yeah.
No, and I'll tell you why my mom, because she has no choice but to do it.
Because I felt different just from one day.
I'm in her face, right? Like,
Yeah.
the problem is that a lot of people don't have success because they don't have the patience to stay consistent. This is slow moving. Like,
So how did you help her?
When you're moving bones and so forth, it's like, moving teeth. It takes a minute. You're not really going to change your teeth, your bite real fast. So my mom had a 10 millimeter herniated disc, L4, L5, pushing on the nerve canal, ready for surgery. Had been 3 months with PT, 3 months with the treatments, the icing, all the stuff that she was doing at home, wasn't getting better. I kept telling her to come in. She wouldn't come in. And so she finally went to see the surgeon the day that they were going to make the date for the surgery. And I asked, please let me go with you. So I went with her, and I went to the meeting with the doctor, the surgeon, and looking at the MRI, I'm looking at the bulge, and I'm looking at the nerve canal, and I'm like, there's some space there, man. Like, I see it's still, it's not touching yet. And I asked the doctor, so how much space you got there? He's about 2 millimeters. I go, that's not nothing. That's something.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so how much of that disc that is 10 millimeters bulge right now you think is going to stay 10 millimeter bulge? Is it inflamed? Can it go back? Like, and I know that herniations fluctuate. Like, they do go back. I've seen people that have had small herniations and then they don't have it at all anymore. So they move back and forth. So I knew that it would reduce. So I said, Mom, let's keep working on the treatment to reduce it, but also to strengthen and get your mechanics right. And she started coming. Hesitantly, and I mean, we were.
So she didn't get surgery.
Nope, she has been without surgery. She hasn't had it.
She delayed it forever.
3 years. We're at 3 years now.
Wow.
She has bad days.
Yeah.
But she now has exercises that she has to do, that she follows, and when she doesn't do them, she's like, I feel terrible. I feel physically worse on the days that I don't do my maintenance. Now she's starting to understand. She's like, I don't want to work out every day, and now she's like, oh.
But
what I gotta do.
She sees how it helps her.
Yeah, I mean, it's the days that she can comfortably move around the house or not.
How's her strength?
Really good. She's
That's
very
awesome.
strong.
That's awesome.
I mean, there's still areas like her glutes are still super weak, and we're working on that and getting her to understand how the glutes. Because again, when you start talking about other body parts that are away from the injury, it's hard for people to understand that I'm talking to you about your foot, even though we're having issues with your shoulder, like, right? Or your thoracic spine. And you're like, but my shoulder. And I'm like, yeah, but these are very interconnected and you have to see the link here. And I guess I like what you said is having them agree and understand, because I think that'll give them, and that's why my sessions are quite extensive, because I really do go into trying to help the person understand. Like, I feel like if you know why you're doing these drills and how they're helping you, the chances of you actually doing them are way higher than if I just give you a sheet of exercises and say that you use these like they do in PT often.
Especially if they're going to be doing exercise on their own without you, like in the gym. Or...
And what to look for, what to feel for, right? When is it wrong? Because you can try too hard, right? Like, at the end of the day, you could take 100% perfect range of motion and strength in someone and then push them beyond that limit, and they're still going to go into compensations, right?
Right.
Like,
they might fall into it, like slip into it.
At a certain point.
Even during a round of like workouts.
At a certain point, you push it too far. It's going to go.
Your muscle gets fatigued, your form goes.
And then you start throwing elements like that, like in your run, right? You're experiencing different things at different miles, right? Things are changing.
Right.
And if you're not adapting with those changes, you're going to feel it, right? Now, put that into a recovery protocol. And if you keep overdoing it, I had a client who had really weak glute meats. And so I was like, yeah, you need to do more clamps and da-da-da. They literally left my gym, went and over to Big Five and bought those mini bands off of Big Five and went home and did 200 clams. Couldn't walk.
Yeah.
Couldn't walk. They couldn't walk. I mean, there is too much of a good thing, right? Like, you need to understand that there is a level, and when you have overdone it, because that's another thing. People often do a recovery exercise and be like, that hurt me. I don't know. Maybe. I don't want to do that exercise. That exercise hurts me. I don't know. Maybe. Let's check it. Why do you say maybe? Because this might be the way you're doing it. Often people tell me that squatting hurts them, but if squatting hurt, everybody be hurt. So it's not about the squat. It's how you are squatting. It's how you are moving.
How much do you push people like that? Will you keep focusing in on something that you believe in is really causing their mechanical issues? Like, will you kind of how do you get around that? Like, do you remember my knee when I was like, my knee seems to be too tight, and you were like, okay, let's loosen you up. So do you typically do that? Like, do you think it's something else that's causing their issue that they just don't quite understand? It just takes time to learn it.
Right. And I love those moments that arise when we're looking for something else, because then they'll see the link. They'll understand. Oh, wow.
It's like a light bulb goes off.
Right. They really, because I might have told them about their quad 5 or 6 times beforehand, but
like quad,
it wasn't. Now that you did it and then you applied it and you were like, oh, I see the benefit, then that's when it makes sense. This is why I think teaching is important. Like, that's the one part that I think physical therapy is they're not teaching people anything. They're just putting them through movement, and between the lack of connection with the individual and the connection of caring with the not utilizing information and teaching element, I think that's why people don't think PT works.
There's a big gap for that, because I was getting that a little earlier, like after surgery, I have protocols. I have my physical therapist that I trust. They follow my protocols where I spell out, I want you doing this in a sling for 2 weeks, or I will delay you, or I don't even want you. If I did your surgery, say you tore your rotator cuff and I fix it, I do it through the camera, small incisions, you go home the same day, but you're hanging out for 2 weeks, right? Like 10 days. And then you don't start therapy maybe for 3 or 4 weeks. So you're just kind of hanging out, letting things heal. You're taking your XR, you're icing it, and you're just like using your hand a little bit. But I don't want people moving their shoulder a bunch.
Right.
Like, there's just no way to speed that up. For 2 weeks, like minimum, you shouldn't really be doing much. And so then after that, then it changes, So like once we start therapy, then it's like my protocols get started. So it's like, okay, now we're going to get the sling off. Now we're going to start some movement. It's going to be, some stretching, some assisted movement. I'm not going to be expecting full results in 2 weeks, but like sometimes people progress pretty fast. If you can progress too fast, too quickly, you're doing too much. That's not good, because then you re-injure yourself, so you got to follow the protocol. That's why that kind of thing is important. You have this like pathway to get the results that you need. And if people kind of just hang out for like 3 months, you just end up getting stiff. Things heal pretty well, but then you get stiff, and then it takes longer to get the movement back.
Right.
And you don't really want that
the time
either.
Lost, right? And then having to go up that ladder again.
I used to do that, right? Because it's like reliable healing. And that was old, like kind of a little older mentality where it's very conservative for healing. But we know now there's something in between that you can kind of stretch things, but you don't overstress things.
I mean, look at how at back surgeries before, when they used to do back surgeries, you'd be laid up.
It's like same day surgery.
And now they have them walking on the first
and
day.
It's better when you're walking,
right?
Because it helps you.
Now we recognize movement is important.
Even with trauma surgery, fracture surgery, they stabilize it. I put a plate in, and then we get it moving. And sometimes for a hip rod where you need to get a hip fracture fixed, we want people walking on those. But obviously depends on how the fracture is. But definitely for hip replacements, they want you putting stress on those implants because it integrates with the bone better.
Yeah.
So the metal likes that, the bone likes that. The metal and the bone integrates better when there's pressure, and then that's how you get weight bearing exercise will then stimulate bone activity. That's called Wolff's Law, where your bones become stronger as you get older because they need to be loaded, and then the muscles will then stabilize those joints. The muscles will then help keep things strong as well, like the attachments between the tendons. But if they're not moving well, you could have strong bones, you could have really strong muscle, and then your ligaments are at risk because things are too stiff and tight. So it's definitely a balance. That's what I'm so interested in, is like not just longevity, but like longevity with good function.
Right.
So like you always have to be functional. And then if you're older, you got to work with what you have and what you did in the past. Right. So like if you're going to be fine because you've been doing it for so long, and they show that like even if you take some time off, it comes back quickly.
Right.
And then the earlier you are in life that you're healthy with muscle, the more muscle that you have and the better your body works, your body remembers that too, and then it works better for a longer time.
Right. Right. I mean, it's like investing, right? Like if you got in that game early on,
well, yeah, you're
be
better off.
pretty, right? Like it's all
on all the coins.
Yeah.
But and that's, you know, especially with my kids, I know like they love watching Rocky, and their favorite scene is the training montage. I'm like, yes, that's so cool. Yeah. You know, like when he's training against Drago, and they're just like, they're kind of comparing the results. It's kind of like functional training when he's out in the snow, you know, versus like all the kind of like machine, like technical stuff. So I thought that was a cool like comparison, and they're both great, but you can have good functional results with both types of training. But I think you know, this one is really interesting. Like this discussion is really interesting one, because like you helped me bridge a lot of gaps. Like I understand things from a medical perspective, from like a surgical perspective, from the shoulder, since that's what I kind of focus on. But like I see people at the point of injury, and so then I'm kind of like, we're like almost too late. Right? Like, because I'm trying to help them now that they've been injured and they need help. They've either been doing something repetitively for too long, or they've had a specific injury because the mechanics weren't right. And then, well, that's just is what it is. That's why I have a job. And so then I fix them, I help them, but then I'm educating them on their nutrition now. It's like, hey, you got to take more protein now. You got to take your, I really do recommend supplements for recovery, because you're at such a decrease after surgery that you need to fill those gaps up.
Yeah.
And so I took it for my own surgery, and I supplement just my lifestyle now. And I find it does prevent injury because I'm more aware. And then I'm just like keeping things fuller with like a better diet. So like less bad, more good.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that prevents injury. Yeah. But what I think like the really interesting part about of like where you came in was, you know, like I've understood things from like a surgical perspective where people will recover, but it's like I wasn't connecting how people can then avoid injury and then hopefully stop seeing me so much for bad problems. You're seeing me for just management, you know, of those things. So I think that's possible to get there.
I think the best place for surgeons are fixing problems, like big problems, you know, accidents, you know, but for the most part, I think if people understand how their body is supposed to work and recognize how it currently is working and work to marry those two ideas into a better place, you'll be all right, right? It's because we don't understand. It's because we want to have the things we want, whether it be a good physique or, you know, a leaner waistline, and that we go to these extremes and overlook these other little things that may become issues on top of daily postures, bad habits, and just stack the deck.
But if that's the end result that you want to get is just a smaller waistline, then you may not be healthy necessarily.
No, not at all. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. That's a very common conversation that I have.
Because it should be like a marker of like your overall fitness.
Yeah.
You know, assuming you don't have some potential like health issues. Sometimes people just can't have a certain body physique just based on how they're born. But your body's adaptable and it can change. And that's also what's so cool about the body. It doesn't just heal from injury, but also like your muscles can adapt as you get older. You can maintain size. You can stay very fit and healthy as you age. And my happiest patients are the ones that understand that, and they're doing their routines 2 or 3 days a week, you know, for like 20, 30 minutes, but they're just staying consistent and they look great. And then they kind of alter their diets to make sure their diets are healthy. And I see it over and over again. And then I see the people that have problems and they look very different. You know, and so it's like, it's years of that stuff, but then it's like, okay, well, why don't we kind of look at the people who are doing those similar habits that have good outcome as they age. So like I have kind of a viewpoint on that, and so do you. So like crossing over and seeing like you have a very similar kind of like clientele where like you can engage with people and interact with them and then help them. And then what's your longest term client that you've had? Like we talked about some success stories, but like what like one of the kids and what's your average that you have somebody kind of come in for a certain amount of time?
The norm is about 6 months to a year that people stay, but I have over 10 clients that have been with me since 2012.
Oh, that's a long time.
I mean, so they've been with me through the journey, right? Because I was a very different trainer back in 2011 to now, right? Like, The things that I brought to the table were, strength and conditioning.
They were early investors.
They were the athletic elements. People at that point would say to me, "I love that you don't train me like an old lady." Like they love that, right? And so that's what I brought to the table. But as I got more and more in tune with biomechanics and understanding longevity, because now that I do the youth groups, I tell them, because I lose them so quickly, I tell them, how many of you are trying to be true athletes? Like who's going to college, who wants to be on a college team, who wants to try to go pro? And a lot of hands go up, right?
Yeah.
And I said, all right, so you want to be the Ferrari, right? Do you think that the fuel work is important? You think the fuel in that Ferrari is going to be important, right? And we go through all these things. The maintenance of that car, is it going to be important for the longevity of the race, right?
Right.
And I tell them, can you operate even in a high level with dysfunctional patterns? Of course you can.
Yeah.
It's just going to be short-lived.
Not sustainable.
It's going to be short-lived. How long do you want to be an athlete? Like how long, if you made it to the pros, how long do you want to get paid? Right? And that comes from you being aware and understanding what you need out of your body and what you need to do. Like if you're a pitcher, I mean, they get those guys, so many elbow surgeries. It's crazy, right? It's just like, I would mitigate that.
Stresses are crazy.
I would mitigate that. Yeah. Like even for me, when we were training, getting closer to competition, we're not going crazy hard those last couple of days. Like, why would you put yourself in potential injury?
Right.
Right, drill the stuff, break a sweat, know how to play the game. You're going in there like that, you might not even make it to the comp. Right? You'll get hurt before and it's happened to me where we were going too hard and I hurt myself and had to pull out of competition because I got hurt. Right? It's like, be more educated about what you need, and you'll have a great career or a great life, mobile life, right? I think that's the number one thing for people, the ones that it's quickly to lose people that don't want to be athletes. So I don't care about that. That's not my gig. But if I put it in terms of like, do you want to make that connecting flight across, the LA airport? Can you make it to that terminal? How old are you? Like, can you pull your luggage all the way over there? Are you going to make it? Right? And there's been people and I say that story because I know someone that didn't make it, that couldn't make it to their flight. They just got winded. They didn't have the same person that said, oh, I don't run anymore. I don't need cardio. I used to do sports. I don't need that anymore. And then here they are put in a position where life demands you to step it up a little bit and they don't make it, right? And that shows up too with like the people that ignore muscular mass and all of a sudden have to put something over their head and put the luggage and the thingy.
I hear the stories a lot.
Or carry the box out of the garage or lean kind of weird in the car and now you're injured, right? You're not an athlete, but you're going to live life that demands these things, these mechanical demands from you. And it'd be in your best interest to know how to keep yourself well-tuned.
It's going to come up at some point, right? That you're going to get stressed and, be in an awkward position. And then if your body doesn't know how to handle it the right way, because it hasn't been trained the right way, it's at risk for injury.
No, that's how they end up in my room, right?
Yeah.
And you start listening to me because now you are hurt and now you want to understand why. Which is the same reason it took me down that rabbit hole.
When's the last time that you were injured? Have you had an injury, like a lifting injury or like a sports injury?
I had a sports injury.
Significant?
I fell on the bike. I crashed going about 40 miles an hour.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Those can be rough.
Had to put the bike down sideways.
Did you injure your shoulder?
My hip. I hit my hip hit the ground. And honestly, it was funny. I didn't feel it for a couple of days.
Did it scrape you?
Of course.
Yeah.
It had a bit of rash burn on my leg.
But did you have any breaks or anything?
No, nothing broke. The bike.
You just got a scrape.
My whole which is why I didn't think anything of it.
Wow.
Like the next couple of days, I think I was
on
the
bike.
You're
going 40 miles an hour.
40 miles an hour on
That's pretty amazing because that could kill you.
The road bike.
Potentially, you could be dead.
I mean, I saw the car come in. I saw it. I saw that I wasn't going to be able to stop.
Yeah.
So I decided to lay it down.
So you did the right thing by not.
I laid it down and my bike hit the car. The bike broke.
Oh wow.
But I was on a bike 4 days later.
Yeah.
And not feeling anything. And I think that was the problem here, right? Here is a perfect example of knowing and divulging into the specifics. I didn't know what had happened, and I ignored, because I could still perform, and I ignored any of the little kinkies that I felt.
So you're having issues from the hip?
I was, yeah. I mean, it started to show up in jiu-jitsu. I started having hip pain in the front and the hip flexors, and then, really understanding that, this accident really did bring up a lot of things, but it also made me understand that there was also a lot of things there. right? Like if you look at my wrestling stance,
Yeah.
it's got the same, it's in that same staggered position that the pelvis was sitting in after the accident. Right? Like it's just louder. Things that I didn't recognize before, like being able to cross my right leg over my knee really easy, whereas the left one I kind of have to reach back down and grab it, and I can get it up there, but it wasn't as smooth as before. And going, oh, that means that there's a difference in my pelvis. Like, oh wow, what does that look like? What is going on? And that took me down the rabbit hole of really trying to understand the hip, which led me right into the core, right? And really diaphragmic breathing and understanding how to brace, bending versus hinging, all these little things that you start to understand that you can, still supplement the movement and still live life normally.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, do you think of this stuff like on a daily basis?
I see his life, yeah.
You think of this like constantly.
Yeah, like
you're checking your alignment and looking
how I get something out of the dishwasher that I gotta like bend down and get, right? Like hinging correctly, moving my hips. If I'm picking something up, I look at it, I size it up.
Really?
I'll decide how I'm gonna pick it up.
It's probably a very safe way to do it.
I mean,
right? No, seriously.
Yeah, you catch the problem.
Because you're not like, nah, I'm on the phone and you're thinking, you're grabbing something and you're like, oh, I hurt myself.
Yeah.
You're like, don't hurt yourself. You have to be actively aware and planning it. I'm going to plan it. I'm going to do it. And that's what you said. Right. You think about it. You're going to, and you're going to reach for it, you grab it, because then you're aligning yourself.
Right.
And you're prepping for the movement. I think that's a really safe way to like move things around your house, is like just to be like aware of what you're doing. Don't be distracted.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of the amount of injuries that happen in the gym in two most very specific moments, right before they go and right when they're done, right? So if it's a deadlift, how they pick up that first bar before they start their set, right? That's a lift already. That first one, getting it up off the ground and you getting all situated is rep one. Like you needed to be there. And then a lot of people, I've seen them like stand up on that last rep and then just, drop the weight or do something that's like not the same as the rep that you just did.
Yeah.
Like pick it up and put it down exactly the same manner that you did the rep and you'll be safe.
I heard this guy, I think his name is Pavel Tatsulin. Do you know that guy?
Yeah,
he's like
strong.
the kettlebell guy.
Yeah,
he says, respect the kettlebell.
Absolutely.
Respect. He's like, you're not done with it. You like respect it. You get there, you look at it, you pick it up with intention. I don't know if he says that, but that's what you're talking about. Yeah. And then it's like, even when you put it down, you're not just like putting it down. That thing might roll and it might come back and smash your foot.
Right.
Because the handle comes down. You're like, the kettlebell is something to be respected. And I thought it was weird when he said that, but like, you go work out with a kettlebell and then you know exactly what he's talking about. You respect it. It applies to weights, things that are heavy that can hurt you. Heavy doors, like things that you don't even know how heavy they are. Cars. Right. Cars are massively heavy, but if they're just sitting there and you kind of hit your head on it, you're like, dang, that car is really heavy, and it pushes back.
6 people get hurt with groceries.
Groceries.
Yeah. Like they don't
carrying, because you're not thinking it's something very heavy. You're carrying from the store to your car. You're taking it out of your car. You're bringing it inside your house.
Most people try to grab as many bags as they possibly can in one trip. Right? All of them. You want to get all of them in instead of being efficient. I mean, body efficient and doing 2 trips. They're going to be time efficient and try to grab everything. Yeah. And I think that's the problem.
That's what it is. It's a rush. We're always in a rush, like to do something else, or we're either distracted or in a rush, and so you're not focused. It's
awareness
like constant,
is constant battle. Such a key element to preventing, to recognizing, to letting you need help in something, right? If you don't know if you can't fix the broken toaster if you don't know it's broken.
Yeah,
right?
you got to agree on the diagnosis.
Exactly.
And that's why I have people on the show, so I can focus on stuff. Like that's cool. We can like sit here and we can focus on it, and to raise awareness about it. Because like I help one person at a time in my office, and I focus on them. Yeah. I treat their issue, and they get a lot of benefit out of that. Mm-hmm. And I think that what got me into this show was thinking like, how can I help, like telling people the same thing over and over again that's helping them, and then people have similar problems, so how can I open that up on a bigger scale? And so like having specialists like yourself where they can come in and talk about those things where you can show how you help people, then that'll tune some people into that. Right. And then they'll just have more of an awareness that these are even things that people like a surgeon would care about, and like we have a conversation about, and we also do jiu-jitsu. So what's next with you? Like you've learned a lot. Do you think there's still a lot more to learn?
I'm in courses right now. now.
Yeah.
I'm
Courses.
I'm taking a course right now.
What's a course like that you're doing? Like what kind of stuff would you say you focus
right
on
now,
in your course?
I'm looking at the course that I'm doing is in functional mobility and understanding a little bit more in depth some of these concepts that we're talking about. And then there's the athletic rehab and how do I apply it to people that want to be on the mat again fast, right?
For jiu-jitsu?
For jiu-jitsu, I'm working with a wrestler right now. I also have a swimmer. I've had football players, soccer players. Right now, a whole soccer team. I have a youth soccer team. So to really try to, it's always been a part, right? The team thing has always been something that I always did.
Yeah, team sports.
So I've always enjoyed working with the youth that want to excel in these kind of ways. And so to get them to understand a little better, I think I have to understand it better, right? And so I don't ever stop. I think that's what's so awesome about this conversation here. Somebody asked me, I was telling them I was going to come on your show, and they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." And he's like, I said, the funny thing is that I think in any other setting, I would not have had this conversation with a surgeon, right? Because they see me as a trainer. It would be a different conversation.
Right.
The fact that we know each other from jiu-jitsu, the fact that you've experienced me in that world, and then you came in and you did a session and you saw, right? Like you saw it.
The session was cool. I'm glad I did that because it helped me really understand it.
And it helped you, understand what I'm doing.
Like what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also a little bit, I was happy to share
help me understand the shoulder.
Right. Here I am talking to a surgeon.
Because I could see the functional aspects of what you're talking about and what I know, but I could like see it in real time because you understand it, and then like you were working out some of my deficiencies because it's hard for me. I like just because I'm a shoulder specialist, it's for other people. It's not for me, right? Like I've gone through shoulder surgery, so I've had issues with it. So I'm learning too, which is kind of what I want. I want to prevent further injury.
I think that's the key, man. I mean,
and get stronger and bigger muscles. I do want the bigger muscles too.
But you stayed humble enough to say, okay, I want to learn something from someone that does something different, right? Like I think we see so many professionals in these industries that take such pride in what they do that they think that it's the one thing, right? And I think it's all of our information, all of our knowledge together, because every case is different. Every person, that's why the same thing can have 5 different cues. Dude, what works for you? What's the cue that works for you?
The guy who I learned a lot of shoulder surgery from in Philadelphia, Jerry Williams, he's like a very well-known national guy. He's like the guy that people go to. And I learned from him, and there's not a lot of training centers in the country. And I spent a lot of time with him, and he's just very like straightforward with how he does his approach to things. It's like, this is the way surgery is done. And there's like 500 steps to it, but that you do all those steps and then the outcomes are excellent. So I was like, okay, I can see a pathway to that. So I'm just going to learn like from that guy. And I would pick his brain and kind of, I'm always like, he did a lot of research on the shoulder early on as a surgeon when people didn't really understand shoulder surgery, how to do like specialty surgery is like since Neer, that was in the 1970s. He invented total shoulder replacements in 1977. He did a hemiarthroplasty in the 50s, so it's been out since like that time, but he was the only one at Columbia. He kind of like was a grandfather. He started it, and then specialty centers started forming outside of that. Madsen went to West Coast, and then my mentor, who is Jerry Williams, was trained under Rockwood. Rockwood, everybody descends at some point from Neer. So that's the guy who invented it. So you had to go to New York at Columbia and train with him to use his implants because he was the one who made the implants. He didn't want people using them that didn't understand shoulder. And so if you were a shoulder specialist, you could be an orthopedic surgeon. You had to be an orthopedic surgeon, but then you would do training with Neer to put in total shoulder replacements. And that's what I do. I did shoulder replacements. But that's been going on, and those implants have been getting better for year after year, decades after decade. And now there's fellowships just in shoulder. So this guy who is like a direct descendant from that, he tells me he doesn't know how the shoulder works. He's like, I don't really understand like how it functions. We like understand the basics of it. Like clearly he understands, the muscles and all the movement, and we understand the important parts of like surgery and all the anatomy. But what we're not specialists at is like functional movement and like how the normal shoulder functions. Right. And so like what he meant by that is not that he doesn't understand like how to get your shoulder working, how to do a good surgery, but it's like when we talk about like the contact pressures of the normal glenohumeral joint of like exactly like how that like oval shape of the head is and where the pressures are, and then why arthritis happens. And I think it's really the guys on the mat that are helping me understand it more. It's the guys who are training, and they they tell me it's muscle imbalance. That's where a lot of injuries come from, is muscle imbalance. And it's like these basic concepts
100%.
that I think are the answer.
100%. People try to look for very explanations that are very vast. It's very simple.
I think it's a lot of injuries come from muscle imbalance. You know, it's just like abnormal forces. 110%. And then you go from there, like what's causing that? And a lot of the times poor mechanics.
I mean, if we go back to the thoracic position of the shoulder of the person, who it's just going to affect how the shoulder moves. So if we go back to the thoracic impingement of the person, that's affecting the way the shoulder moves, and they keep moving the shoulder, they're going to make the parts that are moving the shoulder stronger, and the ones that are not involved weaker. There's your imbalance
because of the compensation.
Right. So as that starts to develop over time, the compensation gets greater until it has no more room to be greater, and something goes. Right. I think understanding it isn't can the person move their arm. The question is, can they move it correctly, efficiently, with what it's supposed to be moving it? Right? And that's the real question.
What we talk about is like, we don't know what the targets are. We don't know what normal targets are. And that's another thing he was kind of getting at, is like, you know, when we're putting in a shoulder replacement, there'll be deformity in the bones, like with how they're oriented. And so we'll say like, okay, well, it's retroverted by 15 degrees and we can measure that. And then, so we all know like, well, it probably wasn't 15 degrees because normal is about up to 5 degrees. So it's abnormal, but then you're correcting it. You're using extra metal to then correct that change. How much are you supposed to correct it to? And that's what people don't know. Like, what is normal? We know that normal has a range. So our normal that we're trying to hit is a range. It's never like a specific number, you know? And so like, that's why like when you know, like the body is like a range, it's not a perfect science. It's like a science of ranges. It's like a science of imperfection, where you just have to know like how people are different and how they respond to things. And like what's acceptable, especially for orthopedic surgery, you know, cause we're like centering and aligning things, but we got to get them stable and like functional from like a movement perspective, so they're not hitting other things.
I guess at that
and like
point,
some people are just hitting like their shoulders like not moving the right way because it's a muscle bound.
Well, but at that point, I would move down to the next section.
That's what impingement is. Right? Like too much tightness, and it's hitting or contacting.
It's contacting the other part of the shoulder.
Yeah.
But if I just look at the angle of your clavicle, for example, and how that's hitting in the mechanic of the shoulder movement, hitting the top of the shoulder, right? We could sit there and discuss on how we can change the degrees on how that's sitting. But if we don't talk about the thoracic spine that placed it there in the first place, you're still going to have a similar outcome at the end, you know, or the person's going to have a really hard time readapting to this new range, this new degree, right? Your body's been used to this 15 degree, and now you moved it back to
or something
5,
like scoliosis, right? So that if they have a spine that's altered, there can be severe scoliosis where the muscles are at imbalance from the start. And so correcting that, sometimes, you know, you can correct it to a certain extent, but the muscles sometimes are always going to be off balance.
Absolutely.
And then you're always at a deficiency.
The spine's compromised, right? At that
compromised is a good way to put it.
So, I mean, if people are born with, I get a lot of, that's one of the quickest way I see people that don't really understand what's going on. I have scoliosis. You know, I've heard that so many times. And the people that are born with it, that have 30-degree, you know, bend in those two vertebrae.
Yeah, there's some real cases.
That's real, right?
But those cases, a lot of times you can see it physically.
You can see it when you're standing.
Well,
right?
if you can't really see it physically, then it's pretty mild.
Well, what I'm saying at that point is, you may have developed.
Sometimes there's rotational changes, though, that can.
But scoliosis, I think, sounds worse.
I'm not a spine expert.
No, but it sounds really like aggressive, right? Scoliosis sounds like terrible. But on some of these cases, it's not true scoliosis. I don't call it true. It's more like a muscular imbalance that they're pulling.
It can be correctable.
That can be fixed. That we can address by strengthening and understanding what's happening. You know, the way people sleep often helps disrupt these things.
I get a really stiff neck when I sleep.
Sleeping
almost every night. I find it's postural. Like if I lay down and make sure my neck is aligned, I kind of sleep either on my back or my side.
I try to sleep on my back.
But if I sleep wrong, I think it really messes my neck up.
I mean, everybody, right? You sleep in a car, you get out, you're like,
totally.
You know, I think that really plays a big role, especially when you spend 8 hours, 6 hours in that position. It's gonna
on a plane or something,
right? And then you go to work and you add more to that same position. Like for my mom, for example, going back to her case, you know, the herniation in the disc really exacerbated by sitting, right? But then she'd sleep in the fetal position. right? So here she is again in this knee up, short and psoas position, really pushing on that disc. So more of the same, right?
And spending a lot, 6 to 8 hours sleeping that way.
On top of the time that she spends sitting,
right,
and maybe drives around to the store here and there. It's
the whole time.
A lot.
All her whole life.
Right, a lot.
Yeah,
and so you start
there.
to add up the time that the human spends in these things that aren't favorable. And so I've fixed a lot with her, just correcting her sleep. Just trying to have her become more mindful, which is really hard to get people to change their position to sleep.
It's behavior changes. Like,
it's tough.
People come to me and they're like, "How am I going to sleep? I always sleep on my right shoulder, and I need right shoulder surgery." I'm like, "Well, you can't sleep on your right shoulder, so you have to make a change." And like people like don't necessarily want to make change until they have to a lot of times, and 100%. I see that a lot. Because they got an injury, they got an issue. I'm like, you need surgery, and if I tell people they need surgery, it's very rare. But sometimes I will say like, this is going to deteriorate unless you fix it by this time, like rotator cuff tears. Yeah. If you were, small tears and wear and tear, this and that, you don't need to fix them right away. But if you have an injury, you're lifting a weight and it's pop and now you're weak, you should get that fixed within 3 months, it's a full tear. Yeah. And so that's what I advise people. But then they come in and they're like, I got to change my life. I got to make arrangements. And I say, yeah, you do. Yeah. You need to make those changes. And so then we could interrupt these patterns. I can kind of interject and interrupt because they really have to make those changes. And so I'm fortunate in that regard where I can help them by intervening and then hopefully set them off on success. So what do you think that we were talking about kind of like that gap then from physical therapy where they're following these protocols and then I get them into what I think people need is more attention. They need like a personal trainer. Right. Do you think like how do you foresee that future going? As like, do you think there's going to be more personal trainers? I mean, it seems obvious. Like I would think more people. Like we need more people to help people. Like I like having a person there helping, not just a video, not just watching, but like somebody who's there with me looking at different angles and like seeing how I'm actually responding to things. You can't replace that.
Why do athletes have coaches, man? I mean, these people know how to play that sport, right? And here they still have an expert. If you were in a jiu-jitsu match, there'd still be Edwin out there yelling and screaming and coaching you. So
it's the reason it helps.
it does, man. It really does. I think people need to change the perspective of what they see as far as what trainers bring to their world. They need to look at it as a contributor. It's not the thing, but it's a thing that's very important that can help you do all of the things you're doing and accentuate the success of those things.
But you almost need to experience it to really feel it, right? Like the value of a trainer in your life.
I mean, when people ask me like, and a lot of people, when they call me, they're gauging me on price, right? And I'm like, I'm so sorry to tell you that although I understand money is important and those may be limitations, getting the right person that understands what's happening and how to fix you. That's the other thing is
it can provide years of value.
It can
just like even a few sessions, it changes.
Shave
things.
So much time from recovery, right? It could keep you from getting hurt. Right. I mean, look at the adaptation that you're asking this person to change as far as not sleeping on their side. They're like, I don't want to do that, right? But they got to a point where they got no choice.
They got no choice.
So you could do this on your terms. And do it slowly, or
you can do it on my terms.
Or you can do
These are my terms.
Yes. Or you can do it on Doc's
You should sell it. You should sell it to them. That's
seriously,
a good one. That'll work. That'll get people coming back.
You're gonna have to do it.
Hey, you and me make a good combo team. You don't want to see this guy. Right?
Yeah,
you see that guy, it's too late. Yeah, but I'm gonna help you. It's like, oh no, they're gonna sign.
I just have a picture of you. It's like, you don't want to see this guy.
Avoid him. Surgery.
Yeah, with scalpel. But no, I mean, I think in understanding that you have to utilize these trainers to benefit you what you're doing and get the right person. And I mean, I use trainers. I still see trainers. I pay 3 trainers right now. And if you count jiu-jitsu, I pay 5 trainers, 6 trainers.
Yeah, Edwin is watching us constantly about our body, our form. He's, not looking at if your shoulder is at risk.
But he's looking.
But we're gonna have a show about that.
He's looking at his stuff. He's looking at technique, right? He's looking at
watching you how to get better at jiu-jitsu
and what he taught you. Are you applying what he taught you? I mean, you sweat me, right? And he was like, "Move of the day," because you did what he taught that day, right? You utilized exactly what he showed,
exactly.
And in our
and how much faster can you get better at something when you have somebody giving you that feedback?
Right.
Hey, I just taught you like that, but you're doing it like that. I'm like, I didn't even realize I was doing it like that.
Even the fact that he went over and gave you props. Like, right? Like,
it was cool.
It was no correction, right? That made a difference.
But then I knew, like, I was doing it right.
You'll implement that technique more because you got good feedback.
Yeah.
Right? You got positive feedback. So even in that sense, he didn't correct anything. He didn't stop you in the middle. He didn't ask you to change. He gave you props for what you did.
But
right?
even just having feedback.
So having that personal encouragement to the things that you need to do and are showing success in doing so is important. Not along the side of the fact that you want to be technical, you want to be correct with what you're doing, you want to try to implement these techniques and catch the things that you're not seeing. Right? Awareness is key to success of these things. And how can you notice that you're doing it wrong if you don't feel it? Like, you've been moving your shoulders up into your neck until I was like pointing it out to you, and now you're seeing it. I'm like, do you feel that? You're like, feel what? And I'm like, your shoulders are in your neck. Like, can you bring them down? And now we start to talk about the connection of your lat.
Yeah.
How well is your lat connecting? And now I give you a tiny little circle to squeeze, right?
Everything I've been doing lately, I was doing pull-ups, and everything has felt more aligned, and it's been hurting less.
Yeah.
Like, my pain has gone a lot.
As long as you focus on those things and separate them and give them their individual space, like work it into smaller movements, work out and train that space, that range, you'll start to improve, and then it'll transfer into the full range, right? It's like breaking down a move for jiu-jitsu. It's like, we're going to do the grip first, right? And then we're going to do this part.
Right.
Then you're going to work on leaning and pushing the guy off and sending their center of gravity this way, right? And you break it down into pieces.
But if it's not working, you're like, well, look at it from the start and like see what the first thing, the grip. Your grip has been off, and that's why it's not working.
Okay.
Oh, the grip is right now.
It could be
and then
something
it starts
as small
working.
as the grip,
yeah,
right?
Then it changes all.
Because if you look at that move online and you try to go and perform it, good luck. Like, right? You don't know the intricacies of it.
Right.
And that's the problem with fitness, is that people think that they can figure it out on their own.
Yes.
And trainers.
I thought I knew enough. I didn't know enough.
And
I'm still learning
put
so
trainers
much.
all in the same hat, which
Right.
you got so many different levels of trainers. You got a lot of newcomers that may not be seasoned enough or exposed enough to these certain things. You got ex-athletes that are very good at exercise coaching, and they're great motivators and, you know, give you awesome exercises, but couldn't tell you why your shoulder blades move differently. Would probably do a workaround or avoid things altogether, right? So there's all these trainers. So if you're just looking at what's the most economical trainer, you might end up in the wrong spot, and you're going to say, well, training didn't help me. And I think a lot of those unsuccessful stories where things can get bad raps is that people took at it either with someone or something or in a way that wasn't most beneficial.
If somebody wants to get started, say I finally listened to the LA Shoulder podcast, and I'm a subscriber now, so make sure you subscribe because that really helps. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. But I'm on the LA Shoulder podcast. I heard Alonzo talking. I want to get started. What would you recommend? Like, if for say 3 things to make a change for somebody who's not really physically fit, like, would you say you need to do personal training and you should do it once a month? Would you say you got to get a gym membership? Would you say you just got to get like some bands and some lightweights at home? Like, what are the 3, if you could do 3 things that make changes in somebody that's interested and they're inspired to make those changes? Like, what are the top 3 things that you would recommend that you'll see progress?
I think because this is something that is, has to develop with consistency, I would start small. You start making too many changes.
So you think the key is consistency? You have to be consistent.
The key is consistency, but you got to start with small changes that can help you get to those bigger spaces. But I would say for someone that does nothing, start with
What's the most effective?
Start with a couple walks a week.
Walks.
Right? Start with a couple walks a week, and start paying attention to your food. Understand your nutrition a little better. Those 2 things are going to be the biggest things. Now, while you're walking, if you notice that, when you step, it feels kind of funny on this foot or this muscle's tight or that, then go home and stretch that. Don't ignore that. So now maybe you add a little stretching. Maybe you had to go up a couple steps and you're like, whoa, I was really winded or I was really weak, or if it was difficult at the end. All these pieces of information are coming your way that can be aiding you into going and exploring that part. Oh, I need more strength, or I need more cardio, or I need more of this. So utilize the information that you get at the beginning of your journey. Start with your moving, and start eating better.
Eating better.
Right? Those 2 things would be the 2 musts. And then add the piece, that 3rd piece, you're asking me for 3. The 3rd piece would be, what is it that you need more help in. If you're really muscular and you need more flexibility, I would probably take you in that direction. If you're very flexible, you're hypermobile, I would probably take you towards strength.
So like have a goal.
Right. And understand that all of the pieces are important. It isn't just strength. It isn't just flexibility. It isn't just mobility. I think when people try to address, like even if you were to try to fix someone's shoulder problem, right? They're forward a little bit. They don't sit up really tall. Someone's always telling you to put your shoulders back, right?
Yeah, right.
My mom always tells me that. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
They're looking at it in a very, I think intelligence is the biggest obstacle for people. Because they try to apply their intelligence, but they have limited knowledge.
Intelligence is an obstacle.
An obstacle. Because they don't have the knowledge, right? So someone, let me simplify that.
You think you know, because I have a shoulder and I've had my shoulder my whole life. It's my shoulder.
Right.
But you don't really understand your shoulder.
Right.
Most people don't understand their shoulder, how it works and stuff, because they have no idea what's on the inside.
Well, let's look at this scenario.
It's very
right?
complex.
In this scenario, the person's shoulders are forward and you're trying to fix their shoulders. So that person may say, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to strengthen my back muscles. And those will help me get my shoulders back.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. I say you got to work on the other side.
So that is partially true, right? There is truth to what they're saying, but you can't walk around flexed. So even if you were successful enough in creating the strength to keep your shoulders back, you can't flex all day, right? But
do you think if you work out one area more that the tone changes?
Of course.
That it'll kind of like over
it'll make
time?
it easier. Well, it'll give you aid, right? But we're going to still have a problem because let's talk about the other parts that you're missing.
Like guys who just work out their chest and they never do their back. Right. They're going to have muscle imbalance in their shoulder. Correct. Just because of that force.
Correct.
Right?
But in this example, let's say that you are successful in strengthening your back.
Yeah.
Over the time that you've spent in this forward position, you've also made your chest and your shoulders muscles tight and shortened.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It doesn't matter how strong I make my back. Eventually, the naturally shortened muscles are going to win. Right. So I actually have to address the length of the tissue in the front as well as the strength of the tissue in the back.
I think so too.
Right. So you have a double whammy here and people are going one direction only. So if you don't have the knowledge there, that's where your intelligence is going, well, this is what I'm going to do to fix it. So, and you're missing that other part. So there's one more piece to that too, by the way.
So you think that people already have enough knowledge or they have enough intelligence or they think they do to solve the problem? But they don't have enough knowledge to really actually solve it.
Correct.
So they end up doing the wrong thing.
100%. Or not doing all of the things. So, right? So, and what's the third part in that scenario is the stiff joint, right? In this case, it could be the shoulder and the spine. Yeah. Right? So,
and it could be multiple stiff joints.
The way I would approach that is, yes, I want to make your back stronger. And yes, I want to lengthen the tissue in the front of your chest, but I also want to mobilize the joint in the middle. And if you're not working strength and release and mobility all together, you're only attacking one problem, right? Which is why people keep going to massage and chiropractor. And they only do that part, which I would consider more like massage, right? More like the tissue release, right? There's no strength there. You're not building any strength, right? And they're not putting you through these movements continuously, so you're developing very little gains in mobility. Right. So where are these other two aspects? I mean, I have had clients that have been going to the chiropractor and the massage, and I'm not saying not to. They're great. I use a chiropractor. Yeah. I have a muscular therapist I use. A neuromuscular therapist, a little different than massage therapist.
He works on your back?
He works on whatever I have injured. He works on my injuries, on the things that I feel are giving me the most problems. When I go to him, I'm not going there to feel relaxed. I'm going there for him to attack and fix certain tight areas. Right? We have a purpose and a game plan. He's very anatomically knowledgeable. He's got a really vast knowledge of the body. They're more educated than masseuses. They have a greater understanding of your anatomy and an understanding of why things are not working and
like
functioning correctly.
how muscles can give, like how they can they need to release. Right. And sometimes it's like they just need pressure. They need the right stimulation in order to relax. Right. And there's different types of treatments like, do you know shock therapy? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I use the Pulse, right? Or TENS machines. Right. Those are great. But again, it's all in conjunction to all the other parts. That isn't the one thing that's going to fix you. And again, I think people are looking for the one thing. You know, I had a client once working with my muscular therapist, and the first 2 massages he had gotten from my therapist, he felt great. And on the third one, he goes, yeah, he didn't do a good job. And I'm like, why didn't he do a good job? And he's like, well, I didn't feel fixed. Like when I got up, I still felt the problem.
That's so common.
And I said to him, you know what, dude, I'm going to call him right now. And I'm going to ask him why the hell he didn't bring his magic wand with him.
Yeah, right.
And he was like, what? I was like, dude, he's not going to fix you in one go.
Right.
And this is a layered problem.
Yeah.
Right. And again, he's only the relief.
Layered problem.
We need to work on the strength and we need to work on the mobility aspect of this problem. And if you really want to be out of the woods.
That's a really good way to put it, because, you know, it's like as a MD, you know, you think it's like those guys or it's the doctors, it's the scientists or it's the you know, the chiropractors. And there's the issue that is real, and there's a pathology there.
Right.
And if you uncover the layers behind that, like you said, it's not just like this one problem. It's a layered, complex problem that happens over time, but also with movement. So it's like function based, you know, and then that makes it even more complex. But do you think you're going to keep doing jiu-jitsu? Do you think you're going to keep
110%.
pushing that envelope and you're going to keep training?
I mean, I've won now as the Masters Worlds.
Yeah.
So I've won it in blue and purple, and I'm fighting for the brown now. I took second and second first, third the second time, and now I'm coming to my fourth Worlds competition.
Do you have anything more to prove as a brown belt, or before you get your black belt? Because you're going to be a black belt, obviously.
I want to win Worlds.
Yeah.
That's the big ticket. August is coming, and that's my big one.
Well,
I want to win Worlds.
I'm gonna come and compete with you then, because I want to get back to the mats. I'm training. We train together now, but to the competitive mats, dude. I think this has been one of my favorite shows that I've done so far. I think I've learned the most from hanging out with you just that one day. I can't wait to train with you a little bit more, like jiu-jitsu obviously, but at the gym. I've been thinking about the things that you taught me. I think it'd be really cool to do some more videos, like have another session. I'm going to put some of those videos that we worked on together, like on the show. So I'll put that out there. But if there's just give like your Instagram, any other like ways that people can find you.
Yeah, ZZOFIT on Instagram, also Facebook. We're on the web, ZOFIT.club. And we're in Studio City, man. You can just swing on by and make an assessment appointment. And
are you taking new clients?
Yeah, we're definitely taking new clients. I'm also looking for new trainers too, so hoping to find. That's the other thing is the way I look at fitness, and what we're trying to do at ZOFIT. We were looking for particular trainers, right? We're looking for people that are looking to really affect the quality of movement of people, not just make them stronger, not just help them lose weight.
I'm sure they can learn a lot from you too. Like trainers that have like a background, but have like open mind to a lot of like the things basically that you teach. Like you're like a pretty significant teacher now. For that.
I've been doing this for quite some time. But I mean, honestly, I think this is amazing. Even what we're doing here and sharing information and sharing knowledge and looking at people as experts in their own space. And even though you are medically, surpass my comprehensions of the body and what you can do with your tools, sharing that and helping me understand things myself better through what you do and vice versa.
Totally.
And that those dropping those egos, I think that's the one thing that I see.
It helps. That's a good start. Jiu-jitsu helped me with that. Yeah. It's a good start. You can meet cool people and you can learn.
Yeah. I mean, social media has done great because it's giving us a lot of outlet, right? It's actually informed a lot of people. It's helped a lot of people come out and see these elements. And now functional training is becoming more and more of a thing. People are now knowledgeable.
Well, they're seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah.
If you're functionally strong, you're like, I can do more stuff. And it seems like if I'm moderate about it, I'm not going to get injured doing normal stuff. Yeah. You're right. Like taking out the trash, like something weird like that. It's like, you should be ready for life, like normal life, right? I remember training
a woman, and this is an older woman, and I said, so
because it sucks to get
what
injured.
is your pinnacle right now? She goes, opening the jar.
Yeah, basic stuff.
I just want to open the jar without any help.
Right.
I just want to be able to, and it's simple, right? But we when we're not there yet in our lives, when you're still working with the beauties of youth, we don't understand the importance of that. And
good health, because when you're sick and you're just like, my nose, I can't breathe out of my nose, and you're just like have some like watery whatever. It's like, it's terrible. You're just like, I just want to be just not this. Like I want to be healthy, which is normal, right? Well, cool, man. I think this one was super fun. We got some good stuff about like diet, about sports, how to stay healthy. Alignment really is the key, like mechanical alignment. We focus on that, like hip and knee replacement surgeons a lot. Shoulder, we don't think about it as much. So I really think the thoracic movement aspect of this and how that's connected to your core, like the importance of your core with your shoulder health. Like core and shoulder is like a really important thing of like how the shoulder responds to like an active core and your back too, you know, because like your shoulder basically comes down with those big muscles and like your pec and your lat that go all the way down to your hip basically. Right. So like your core is essential to shoulder health.
110%. The 3 primary stabilizers that I always focus on: glutes, core, and lats.
Yeah, and that changed my understanding of how these muscles are kind of grouped together, you know. And so like really kind of like the big key thing that I've taken away from like lifting weights and avoiding injury is use those big muscles together to lift heavy weights with complex movement. You isolate the smaller muscles, or you lock the smaller muscles, right? So like they're locked together so they can withstand a load, like a deadlift. You're using your shoulder, but it's kind of locked.
You're not your lats.
Right.
Such a complete exercise.
Very complete. Like your shoulder, your lat, your core, all those things.
The tension you're getting throughout your entire body. I mean, that's why I think it's such a strong exercise.
And it's good. It's good for you because then you're exercising those pathways for stability. You know, and then you can increase the weight there. Without stressing the small ones.
I think deadlifts. I mean, there's so many conversations about the benefits of heavy deadlifts.
Do you think there's benefits to heavy deadlifts?
I think there comes a point where they're more dangerous. Like
it can be, right?
The risk to reward starts to get too big, you know. And as you age, if you don't keep it up, can be because you're talking.
And it takes one time too.
All it does is one bad rep.
Right.
I mean, if people aren't ready for the functions that we were joking when we were talking about your, patients wanting to go in and start doing these Spartan races or whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
Telling you about my friends that wanted to go skiing for 5 days.
Right.
And they don't ski. Like they don't do anything athletic. I'm like, it's going to be a waste of money. I was the only one. They got the cabin for 5 days. I told them, let's do 3.
Well, maybe that's the key then. It's longevity. It's like being.
You got to think about is how are you going to be at 70?
Right.
What kind of 70-year-old do you want to be? Instead of thinking of how I want to be the strongest right now, definitely develop your strength as much as you can, but also keep in mind that you're trying to do this so that your machine works well later. Right? Yeah. We hopefully all will reach 70 at some point.
Yeah.
And what kind of a 70 you'll be really depends on what you do today.
And the guys who are like, functional, they can like do stuff. They seem the happiest. They're just kind of doing their thing and they have their way of making it work. And some of them have trainers. Yeah. But I think more trainers, the better, because it spreads knowledge and it gets people moving and it kind of holds you accountable to show up and to learn. You're like, hey, I learned something with Alonzo. I'm going to go try it out. And then you go back. Maybe it's been some time, a few more months. You come back. It's kind of like me. I do checkups on people. Yeah. It's like a follow-up. Just make sure everything's looking good. We get an x-ray. It's like, it looks good. Don't get an x-ray. I'm going to check, hey, I see like tightness here. Have you been working? Like, yeah, I've been working. Go back and do more, so I just do these checks. And I think those are important too, to give that feedback for my patients.
I think also too, because time and money are a big problem for a lot of people, right? At ZOFIT, we really try to take that into consideration. If money is an issue, try to figure out, we do have small group classes and large group classes that we can kind of integrate. And yes, it's not as personal, but I'm going to put you in the spaces that I think are going to benefit the most in those areas.
And it's so dense. I learned so much from you from that one day. It's just like, and it can be so beneficial. It can just set you off on this better pathway to success.
Yeah, because anything you do from there, now you're placing this information in the same way that you would, apply new knowledge from school, right? And now you can really get the most out of your movement, most of your workouts.
Yeah, totally. Well, cool, man. I think there's a lot here, and hopefully enjoyed the 8th episode of the LA Shoulder Podcast. But
thank you guys.
That's all, folks.
Appreciate it for inviting us over here at ZOFIT and giving yourself an opportunity to come into ZOFIT and see what we do over there.
Can I come back?
Absolutely.
All right, man.
You're always welcome.
Awesome. Good having you, man. All right.
Thanks for having us.
That's all, folks.